And our next speaker is John. What's your surname again, John?
John Bush.
John Bush. Not related to any of the others, are you? Are you? Wait a minute. Let's check that out first. Okay.
Lineage.
Different lineage. Much cleaner. Okay. Excellent. Go, John.
All right, thanks. I haven't heard that one in a while. I don't know if everybody even remembers George W. Bush. I use George W. Bush's philosophy when it comes to the intentional communities that we're trying to build. It'd be a heck of a lot easier if it was a dictatorship, just as long as I'm the dictator. Maybe on the first one, that's on our property. Then we're going to open it up. All right, my name is John Bush, and I am very concerned with the creation of free societies. It's my life's work to create an environment where free, sovereign, beautiful human beings can experience political autonomy. Hopefully within our lifetime, I think it's entirely possible. I used to always have a caveat like, well, at least our kids or maybe our grandkids. But I was speaking with this woman in this Thrive Evolution group, and she was like, no, we're going to see our work through, and we're going to get to enjoy the fruits of our labor. So that's what I'm all about. I came up with this idea a while back called the Freedom Cell Network. Derrick Broze and many other people helped me to grow it and turned into an entire network. Where are my Freedom Cell people in the audience? All right. That's exciting. We're going to be doing a workshop at 5 o'clock, 5 to 6:30, helping you to start a Freedom Cell group or maximize the efforts of your existing Freedom Cell group. But today I want to talk to you guys about exit and build strategy. Where are my exiters in the audience? Yeah. The exiters. And I also want to talk about success and empowerment. I have dove deep in success and self-development literature, the Tony Robbins, the Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Napoleon Hill, the classics. And I've used those principles to find some success in my business enterprises. And I also am very passionate about applying those principles to the success of our work here in the pursuit of freedom and the activism that we're doing. And so I want to share with you what I call the Live Free Academy empowerment philosophy. It's essentially a lot of these ideas condensed down into 4 critical elements, 4 things that I believe are absolutely critical and necessary for folks to find success in their lives, whether it's successful and healthy relationships, whether it's successful financial life, or in the case of what we're gathered here today for, successfully creating a genuinely free society. Who wants a free society? Who wants to experience that in their lifetime? Wouldn't it be cool if like we stopped struggling and fighting and so much effort was dedicated to this and that and we could just live and just be? What if just doing that is what created the free society, right? So I want to share my empowerment philosophy and break it down how it applies to exit and build strategy. Exit and build life design strategy. These are tactics and strategies you can implement in your personal lives in order to find more freedom. And then a collective strategy that we can implement together in order to pave the way for political autonomy, living in harmony with one another and living in harmony with the earth as well. And hopefully creating institutions, creating systems and structures that will enable the lasting and sustainable freedom for generations to come to experience. Because, I mean, we deserve better than statism. We deserve better than all the corruption. It's absolutely ridiculous. How many people in the audience would you say are optimistic about the prospects of liberty? Let me see a show of hands. You feel like it's inevitable that we are going to experience true freedom. All right, where are my folks that are banging on those conspiracy websites and videos that are like, no way, man, the Great Reset's inevitable. We're totally screwed. You talk about buying land. How can I buy land? Klaus Schwab said I'll own nothing and be happy. I just got to give up. They said it on their website. We're going to talk about that because limiting beliefs and mindset is absolutely critical. I have never been more optimistic about the prospects for liberty, and I've been doing this for 20 years now, 2 decades. Ever since I was 17, I guess, I've been concerned with freedom and truth. Ever since I caught a documentary by Alex Jones, 9/11 Road to Tyranny. Anybody seen that one? Alex Jones, I got the documents right here. The first time I experienced Alex Jones was on cable access in Austin, Texas. I didn't know what the heck he was talking about, but people would call in and prank call him. They go, Alex Jones. I'm going to speak to Alex Jones. And you get all like worked up. I was like, this guy's great. This is hilarious. And then I watched that documentary. I was like, oh my God, there are criminal elitists that are running the government. Okay, so I have never been more optimistic. I was optimistic before COVID, and then after COVID, it almost seems like the Bill Gates, the Klaus Schwabs, the oligarchs and the tyrants of the world, they're the best players on our team. They like started a recruiting division. They're like, let's see how pissed off we can make these people. Let's see how much we could expose ourselves. So simply, but some may say, well, the masses are going along with it. I got griped at for not wearing a mask. All my family got vaccinated, this, that, and the other. You got to remind yourselves that the masses, those folks that just go along to get along in life, they never change the course of history. They just follow the latest trends and follow what's comfortable. That's why when we do our exit and build work, we're trying to make freedom sexy. We're bringing sexy back to the cause of freedom. So hopefully the masses will be like, dang, I want what some of their smoking. Those guys are frolicking in the field. They're all healthy, vibrant. Their kids are all educated and super healthy and playing well together. What are they doing? They're keeping all their money and not having to give it to the man, right? All right, so I'm super optimistic. And in fact, the Freedom Cell Network, pre-COVID, there was around 1,000 people involved in the network, or at least 1,000 people signed up on our website, freedomcells.org. Post-COVID, there's now more than 33,000. That makes me feel pretty good about life. I also am experiencing a good transition. I'm seeing the transition. I feel like I'm playing an active role in furthering this transition of complaining, researching, philosophizing, to doing, building, and creating. That's really what it's all about. I strongly believe that there are enough of us that are aware of the problems, that believe in the philosophy of liberty, that if we just shifted our focus out of a reactionary paradigm where the enemies of liberty are choosing our path, where we're constantly going from the latest issue to the latest issue, this guy's in office, this election's happening, the slap heard around the world or whatever, we're out of that reactionary paradigm, and instead we choose our own path. We have a vision for where we want our life to go. We have a vision for where our community will go in the future, and we stay dedicated to that path in a proactive manner. Like a horse with blinders on, we are on our course, and we are the masters of our own destiny. How does that sound, ladies and gentlemen? All right. All right, well, let me break down something that has been super critical in my success in life and in activism. It's called the Live Free Academy 4-part empowerment philosophy. Live Free Academy is a business that I started last year. The whole goal is to help people to find freedom, specifically in the areas of financial independence and entrepreneurship, decentralized technology and cryptocurrency, and exit and build strategy. Exit and build strategy. And in order to more effectively further those areas, in order to more effectively find freedom and find success, I narrowed down these 4 little elements. So I'm going to break it down for you. The first piece is mindset. It's the foundation. Nothing is more important than having a sovereign mindset, right? And I choose the word sovereign purposefully. Sovereign is when someone is the highest authority, right? Politically speaking, the government thinks that they're sovereign. Nothing could be further from the truth. Sovereign is the highest authority in a given area, given geographic area. So when I speak about a sovereign mindset, I mean being in control of our thoughts, right? We have a soundtrack in our head, although apparently some people don't have a voice in their head. Is anybody in the audience that's just like still? I don't know if you like reach nirvana or something, but I saw some things like 20% of people have no voice in their head. I was like, man, that's pretty chill. What are they doing all day? Just sitting around. I don't even know what that would be like, because this voice is constantly chattering. La, 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 la. And this voice used to be my biggest enemy. And it would sow seeds of doubt and insecurity in my head. And then through mindfulness practice, right, or meditation, I was never really good at sitting. I like walking meditation. I came to be in control of the voice that's in my head. I came to, in the moment, recognize thought patterns that were no longer in my best interest. When it came to money, right? So I run this business. I sell Kratom, CBD, Delta 8s called Brave Botanicals, myBraveBotanicals.com. Try 5 free Delta 8 gummies at freed8gummies.com.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. Once you add the 5 gummies to your cart, you'll get an opportunity to buy 20 more, 25% off. It's called an upsell. All right. Anyway, so when I was running this business, there was a time when it was a pretty damn scarce business, and I was like running it out of my house, and it was really difficult, and I was struggling to make ends meet, and I was completely broke, and it didn't feel good. And it would come time to order more Kratom. We imported from Indonesia, and I'd be looking at the checking account. Oh, I don't know if I can place a big order. Oh, I just feel a little worried. What if the bills come in and I haven't sold this Kratom in time, and I don't know. So I would place a small order. I'd order like 20 kilos of kratom. The kratom would come in, the orders would come in, and before you know it, I'd sell out of the damn kratom. And then I would have to respond to my clients and say, I'm sorry, we're out of stock. If you mind waiting like maybe a week or two, we'll be able to fulfill the order, or I could refund you. I'd hate to do it, but, and I realized like, holy shit, I'm shooting myself in the foot because of that scarcity mindset. I'm manifesting more scarcity. And so I started recognizing that and be like, you know what? Enough of this. I'm ordering 100 kilos. Let's go. And if I'm worried about the money not being there, then I create more problems for myself, right? It's always good to create problems for yourself because it forces growth. It's on those edges where we grow, right? So I created more problems for myself. I drained the bank account. Now I got to roll through this kratom. Might as well roll out some new marketing campaigns, but it created an environment where I had the capital and I had the stock in order to take the business to new heights. More recently, we ordered 200 kilos of kratom, which is pretty cool, right? I'm sitting there with like kratom powder all over my nose. The world is yours, right? That's just one example. Another example, I used to like financial exchange. First of all, there's a lot of folks that are struggling with money. And a lot of people have a scarcity mindset with money. And like it or not, I think most of this group probably appreciates markets and free markets and money and economic exchange. Maybe some don't. But like it or not, that's the financial system we find ourselves in. And money's not going to make you happy, but it certainly makes it easier to pursue happiness. Money doesn't make you happy, but poverty sure as hell won't make you happy, right? And so I just want to remind everyone that feels scarcity when it comes to money. They just printed $9 trillion. Go out and get some of it. All you got to do is provide value to other people, help them solve their common problems. The bigger problems you solve, the more money you'll make. So I used to have this thing with money, though, when I would buy something, it'd be like, oh, I have less money now. And that would lead to more and more scarcity. And then I flipped the script on myself. Again, I recognized that pattern. This pattern's not serving me. It's only manifesting more scarcity, more lack. What if I flipped it around and instead of losing something when I engaged in a financial exchange, I focused on what I was benefiting and gaining, right? And this really came to note in my mind when I was with my ex-wife and she had this like spider bite, and it was a toxic spider bite. It was like a black widow or a brown recluse. And she really, really was benefiting from Juiceland smoothies. Any Austinites know Juiceland? It's the best $12 smoothie you'll ever have. And so we go up to the line. I had my 2 kids. That's probably $14 by now. And I'm like, all right, let's order some smoothies. And the tab's like $60. I'm like, holy shit, we could have sat down for a nice meal for that. And then we'd get the smoothies, and I'd begrudge. Oh, God, you can't. It's so expensive. I don't think we can do this anymore. Blah, 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 blah. My ex-wife turns to me and was like, you know what? These smoothies really benefit me a great deal, and it doesn't feel good when you say that. And I was like, damn, that sucks. So I kind of started thinking about that and meditating on that. I was like, how about instead of feeling like I'm losing something, instead we're gaining this amazing, incredible juice that nourishes our bodies and helps my children to be healthy as well. And on top of that, what if we're giving money to this company that hires all these great, healthy young people so we can in turn grow the local economy? And it totally changed the game for me. And now that's how I feel. Like, especially there's like vendors and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, for John, for you, not $15, $10. I'll be like, no, man, how about 20? Let's go. We need to support all our people. It's all about the mindset. You got to get the mind right first. In the work that we do, we're encouraging all sorts of people to do really great things. And sometimes what I experience is the bigger the thing that we're pushing or encouraging, like a creation of a genuinely free society, that's a pretty big deal. People feel uncomfortable with that. Or we're like, hey, we should all leave the big cities, buy land out in the community, homestead, and build intentional communities. And instead of people responding like, that sounds like a really great experience, I wonder what I could do in my life in order to make that happen, because I'd love to raise my kids and have chickens and be friends with the neighbors and stuff, the first thought that pops in their head is, I couldn't possibly afford that. Or, I just read Klaus Schwab said, we'll own nothing to be happy, so how can we possibly own land, right? And it was like, I don't want to have a bank note. They're going to shut the bank down. The mortgages are going to go away. They're going to destroy the economy. And on the flip side, I'm like, let's game that out. Okay, let's say they destroy the economy. How are they going to pay the enforcement class? Like the local sheriffs, they're going to be like, I ain't going to risk my life taking this dude's land. You aren't even paying me. You drive through, what is it, Milam County? Milam County, Texas. Ain't nobody giving up their land to Klaus Schwab or any socialist Democrats in Milam County, Texas. I tell you what.
Yeah.
Shit. Come on, boy. That's why it makes a huge difference where you happen to geographically reside, right? If you're in New York City, San Francisco, Canada, it might be a different story. But if you're here with the gun-toting Texans, ain't nobody taking anybody's land. That's the mindset. People shoot themselves in the foot before they even have the opportunity to embark on a journey of growth and a journey of freedom. And I want to encourage everyone to use mindfulness practice. That's being present in the moment, where you can interrupt those thoughts. So you're like, man, John Bush had a lot of cool things to say. It would be really cool to live in an intentional community, raise our kids together, pull them out of government schools. Then you got the hey, hold on there. How about instead of thinking about a problem, we focus on solutions? Because every problem is a flip side. There's a solution. How about we problem solvers instead of problem stoppers and enders and sitters? So the mindset is absolutely critical. Another thing too, I notice folks that come to festivals like this, folks that have gardens and their kids are playing together, basically the less time you spend behind the computer researching about the conspiracy, the more free you will be. Because our thoughts, our energy, what we give our attention to, that's the reality that we experience. So if you're sitting there researching the latest on how China's social credit scores are being exported and la, 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 you're going to be like, holy shit, we're screwed. You're going to go inward. You're going to feel insecure, feel weak, feel disempowered. But if instead you're rolling around with 500 like-minded people who have all brought themselves to this incredibly beautiful space, you're engaging in economic exchange without paying any damn taxes or any regulations, your kids are playing together, they're meeting new friends, then you're going to feel pretty damn free. Do you guys feel free this weekend? Right on. The mindset is absolutely fundamentally critical. I'm a firm believer in the law of attraction. That's the first piece of the 4-part empowerment philosophy. Mindset. Get your mind right, and the rest will follow. Remembers that song, En Vogue? Free your mind, and the rest will follow. Da-na-na. It's before somebody else's time. Okay, that's the first piece. But, you know, there's all this law of attraction stuff. And they're like, law of attraction, manifestation. All we got to do is think about it. Just think. And then we'll get it, right? So I have ambitions to have a private jet. Where are my ambitious people there? Where's Nathan? Yeah. Nathan, there he is right there. I'm like, let's get a private jet. People are like, oh my God, that's a little bit much. Nathan's like, oh yeah, man, let's do it. And I was like, maybe we could split one. He's like, no, I want my own. You get your own. So I got ambitions to do a private jet. So I was doing this experiment one day and I was like, okay, let me try the law of attraction. Private jet. I feel the wind blowing through my, no, don't open the window. Private jet. Got the stewardess coming through, offering the kratom drink. Okay, all right. Where's the private jet? What the hell? I thought if I could just think it, manifest it. No, it takes much more than that. That's where the next piece comes in of this success philosophy. You gotta have the crystals, that's right. Crystals and the sage. No, the next piece is strategy. And I have concerned myself with the topic of strategy very deeply for quite some time. I've tried this, I've done the political thing. We even had a piece of legislation passed in the state of Texas that I authored. Of course, it got watered down quite a bit. It was about these fusion centers where they merged the local, state, and federal law enforcement. It was like all the fusion centers in the state of Texas have to have privacy policies that prohibit them from sharing non-political, religious, or social information with other law enforcement departments or with the FBI. And we got that passed. All right. It was actually, we were working with the Texas Motorcycle Rights Association because they were getting pulled over by Department of Public Safety troopers and they were taking pictures of all their tattoos and stuff. And we were simultaneously doing work against these fusion centers and the bikers reached out and they're like, we need you to come to a biker rally. And I was like, let's go. Talk about some agorists, the 1%er biker communities, man. They don't messing around. But the bill got passed. So it changed everything. In reality, none of the fusion centers followed the law because nobody was there to enforce it. There was no teeth on the bill. I did that. I did protest. How many guys used to love screaming at government buildings? Yeah! It's made such a difference. The walls, you could see the walls like crumbling, cracking. We're just screaming. Man. The answer to 1984, 1776. Alex Jones loved screaming at government buildings. His thing is like, maybe I scream loud enough. It was cool watching him scream at the Bilderberg meeting in Endgame. Anybody seen that documentary, Endgame? Well, Alex Jones guy's out. I kind of started checking him out again after COVID. He had some good stuff to say, but he went a little right wing for me. All right, so strategy. When I think of strategy, I think of how we get from here to there. And the strategy of politics, the strategy of yelling at government buildings, you know, more power to the Canadian Freedom Convoy. I was in total solidarity. I did some videos trying to educate folks on how they can use cryptocurrency, because everyone's like, cryptocurrency, they shut down the cryptocurrency. That's a big fraud. That's another limiting belief thing. We're like, wouldn't it be cool if the central bank digital currency thing rolls out and we had this technology that would enable us to engage in commerce with one another online and the government couldn't do a damn thing to stop us? How great would that be? And like, we're actually doing it here. And the people are like, well, I don't know. Why have they shut down the internet? I heard those blockchains can be hacked. I read an article and I never did anything else. Really have no idea how it works, but I know that it doesn't work because I fear what I don't understand. That's, again, that other thing. It's like, yeah, we're talking about cryptocurrency, how it's great, how it works for freedom. And people's first thing is like, oh, wow, that sounds promising. I should maybe learn a little bit more. No, their first response is, no, it can't work. I saw this, blah, blah, blah. It's almost as though they don't want it to work. Maybe they missed out and they're like, well, maybe if I got in when Bitcoin was $100, that shit sure would work. Anyway, all right, strategy. For me, strategy is answering the question, how do we get from here to there? How do we get from here to there? Here, the state of society, the status quo. There, a genuinely free society. And for me, that strategy, the most effective strategy that we can engage in order to create freedom, is what we call exit and build strategy. What time is it? How am I doing on time? Because I like to just go down little rants. 152? 12:52. All right, cool. 152. Dang, time flies. I went on into everyone's talk time. All right, cool. Strategy, exit and build strategy. This is a strategy that encourages people to identify areas of their life that are not in alignment with their values, their principles, or they just find completely useless. Identify those areas, exit those areas, those systems, those institutions, and build alternatives that are rooted in freedom, decentralization, transparency, non-corruptible. Exit and build. All right, that's the strategy that I believe in. I heard it first from Derrick Broze, the one, the only Derrick Broze. Give it up for Derrick Broze! Woo! So he's talking about this exit and build thing. I was like, dang, that's pretty good. That's pretty catchy. Where'd you hear about that, Derrick? So I went and searched like exit and build strategy. Where's the genesis? I was doing this talk. I was like, Derrick came up with that. Not bad. Do you give it up for Derrick Broze again? I'm a Derrick Broze fanboy. President of the Derrick Clothes fan club. Derrick Clothes, Derrick Broze. All right, somebody walked up to me and they're like, hey, are you Derrick Broze? And I was like, no, I'm John Bush. And they're like, oh, have you seen Derrick Broze? That's a half truth. And I was like, no, I'm John Broze. You see Derrick Bush around? He's around here somewhere. Anyway, all right, exit and build strategy. Exit and build, right? So the idea is, if we create the alternative institutions that can enable us to live a life of freedom outside of their scope and purview, we can effectively experience genuine freedom and political autonomy because we're no longer subjected to their systems. I'm going to talk a little bit more about applying this strategy to exit and build here in a second. Another big piece of the strategy component is setting goals. I'm all about big, sexy, massive goals. You set a big goal. For example, let's say somebody's making like $50,000 a year. And they're like, all right, I got this big, ambitious goal. I'm going to grow my income by 10% this year. From 50,000 to 55. It's going to change everything for me. I'm going to be able to order the $12 steak instead of the $10 one. It's going to be great. I'm not going to be so late on all my bills all the time. Right? No, if you want to set a goal for your income, I say, why not 10x it? Let's shoot for the stars and go for 500,000, baby. It's attainable. It can be done, especially if you provide value for other people, help other people to solve their common problems. But the thing about setting these big, sexy goals is it gets you pumped up, because making $500,000 a year from $50,000 is a complete game changer. It excites you. It pulls you back to the mindset thing. Let us focus on sexy, attractive, beautiful things that pull us towards greatness, rather than focus on the things we don't want to have in our lives. And my journey to well, I wouldn't say I'm financially free, but my journey to have better financial abundance in my life, I think the biggest click that changed for me was, instead of working so hard to no longer be broke, instead of working so hard to not have the electricity turned off on me and my kids in our apartment, instead of working so hard to not have a lot of choices in the pantry, that was the energy and the frequency that I was vibrating on. Instead, I flipped the script and said, you know what? I want that private jet. I want that 10-acre homestead that me and my fiance purchased about 8 months ago, right? And I know you might want to string me up, but I want to drive a freaking Model 3 Performance Tesla. And if you don't like it, then hop in the driver's seat. Let's go from 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. It's a lot of fun. But I wanted those things, and I allowed that to pull me, right? So when we're working in our own lives, let us come up with a vision for our ideal life, whether it's financial abundance, whether it's health, whether it's community, whether it's our kids thriving and succeeding. Let us hold that vision ahead of us and allow our actions to align with that, right? What can I do in the present moment that's consistent with that person that I want to be? And when it comes to big, beautiful, sexy dreams collectively, let us hold that banner of total freedom ahead of us, because if we don't speak it, if we don't preach it, if we don't live it, how can we possibly expect to attain it? Let's do that now. That's why, like, we do these events. We're doing this Exit and Build Land Summit at the Bastrop Convention Center, exitandbuildlandsummit.com. Tickets still available. Or you can watch for free, day 1 and day 2 online, exitandbuildlandsummit.com. But we're using this Bastrop Convention Center. It's affordable. It's a good rate. But, like, we got to unpack the studio, move everything here. There was a second when we were going to have to do all the setup the morning before, which was nuts. And Rebecca was like, I don't know if how we're going to do this. I was like, we're going to do it. We're manifesting it, damn it. We're going to do it the morning of, I should say. That would have been nuts. We would have got it done, though, by golly. Even if it killed us. The event would have started. Oh, so I want to thank everyone for coming out. All right. Whatever. Getting down on the floor, it wasn't worth those couple chuckles. Sorry, I thought that was going to be a hit. Anyway, so I'm like, you know what? I want to have our own world-class event center. Like, like my daughter has this dance. They do this recital at this performing arts center. And every time I walk in there, I'm like, I'm going to build this shit. We're going to have our own performing arts center for our own events. There's going to be a community center. There's going to be space for the homeschool co-ops to meet. There's going to be co-working space. There's going to be extremely fast internet. There's going to be a maker studio with all sorts of robotics and all sorts of stuff. Elon Musk is going to be there. Where's Morena? Morena's always there with me. She's like, hell yeah, John, we're doing that event center. In fact, here's the property right now, 2.4 million. Let's pull the trigger. Let's go. We're seeking investors for that project. That's what I'm saying. That's really exciting for me, the thought of having our own event center. People can do conferences there. We can host weddings there. We can do the Exit and Build Land Summit 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 there. That's exciting, and it pulls me there. So when it comes to strategy, let us come up with goals in our own lives, and let's make those goals really big and attractive. Because back going to 50,000 to 500,000, let's say we only make it halfway there. 250K a year is not too bad, huh? That's a little game changer. Big, sexy goals. 10x the goals. Make them fun and exciting. All right, the next piece in the Live Free Academy empowerment philosophy is find a team. We are social animals. We can more effectively and more efficiently achieve our common goals when we work together with other people. And that's precisely why we created the Freedom Cell Network. A lot of people feel isolated. They feel alone. But lo and behold, there's a website they can go to. There's Telegram groups. There's people they can connect with that can get them tapped into a network of productive, proactive doers, people that are not focused on the problem. Rather, they're aware of the problem and they're ready to build the alternative in the solution. Work with other people. Find the others. And I got news for you on the others, right? A lot of people are like, we need to wake everybody up. We need to wake everybody up. We need a red pill, everybody. I'm going to shove a red pill down the throat of every one of my family members at Thanksgiving dinner, and that's going to teach them, I tell you what. They're like vomiting. They're like, we freaking hate it when you come to dinner. We're trying to talk about the Bears game. They're going on and on about this Klaus Schwab guy. We have no idea who it is, nor do we care. You know, I counsel a lot of people with my business. We do a lot of consulting, and there's a handful of folks that reach out, and they're like, I'm worried about my relationship with my significant other because they're not on board. And so I'm like, you just got to try harder. Just force it on them. No, I do the exact opposite. I say, you know what? Maybe people aren't ready to come along, and that's okay. Like I said before, the government and the Klaus Schwabs and Bill Gates, they're the best players on our team. Eventually, everyone's probably going to come around. If they don't, no worries. But maybe just to have that be an opportunity to just enjoy the simple things in life. We don't all have to obsess over the cause of freedom and the price of crypto and the latest conspiracy our entire lives. We can go on walks. We can go swimming. We can watch a ball game every once in a while. I catch a sports ball game every once in a while. It's kind of entertaining. I'm being indoctrinated by some weird woke agenda half the time, but I've been inoculated from that. I hope you have too. Anyway, when it comes to people, right? A lot of people are like, we got to wake everyone up. We got to wake everyone up. I would contend that there's enough of us that are woken up already. And if we are going to wake people up, let's not water the message down. Let's pick off the people on the margins of civil society that are kind of like, I don't know, I voted Biden, but at the same time, he's kind of a D-bag, and now I'm really struggling to make ends meet. And we're like, hey, learn about inflation, right? I think we have enough people to already change the course of history. And what we need to do is organize the remnant, right? The remnant of the people that are going to pick up the pieces when society collapses and build anew. And ladies and gentlemen, we're the remnant. And I've never felt more grateful to be alive at a time like this, because we can really make some big changes. We can shift the course of history. We just have to believe in ourselves and our ability to get it done. All right, so mindset. That's right. Give it up. Woo! We got mindset. We got strategy. We have working with other people. And the fourth component is, in order to accomplish these goals, in order to completely transform your life to one that's in alignment with freedom, alignment with your values, something that's fulfilling and it feels good and you're excited to get up in the morning because you're looking forward to the cool things you're going to do during the day and the amazing people you get to spend your time with. And in order to create a genuinely free society, absent a legitimized institution of coercion and hierarchy, the fourth component is to take massive action. It's going to take a lot of work, folks. That means less time watching Netflix, more woke agenda, and more time in the garden, right? It means less complaining and more creating. It means in order to make a change, sometimes you got to make a change in your life. In order to get something in life, sometimes you got to give something up. So everyone feels like it's a struggle, and back to the money things. I just don't have time. I got this full-time job. And man, 40 hours a week is like a vacation to me. You know, I'm like, whoa, holy shit, I've been working for 10 hours today. Let's go. Give me some freaking kratom. Rebecca's like, honey, it's 10 p.m. Can we please go home? You could take the car. Come pick me up at 1. No, I'm just kidding. Let us balance that, of course, with self-care, because there's been times when I'm doing like these workshops and stuff, and like halfway through the workshop, I'm talking like this, like our buddy Bitcoin Ben. I'm like, oh, what's up, everybody? I don't know if I can move forward with this, but Rebecca's going to take over on this part. Balance it with self-care, but at the same time, we got a lot of work to do in this world, and we got to take massive action. So make a commitment to yourself. There's plenty of opportunity throughout the week, whether you work or not. And for the folks that are out of work, like, there you got all the time in the world to make incredible changes in your life and to really lean in and lean heavy. And back to the working with other human beings, sometimes you got to lean on someone's shoulders. We can help lift one another up. But you got to shift things around. If you're genuinely concerned about the state of the world, if you want your children to inherit a better future, if you want to experience freedom in your lifetime that you never experienced before, it's going to take a lot of hard work, and you're going to have to reprioritize how you spend your time. Take massive action. All right, how am I doing on time there, Rebecca Beans?
It's like 103.
103, all right, cool. Okay, so exit and build strategy. That's the empowerment philosophy. You guys think that could work to help improve your life a little bit? Not just in the freedom stuff. Maybe you got a relationship that needs a little mending. Maybe you got this business idea you've been thinking about. Act. Thing with business ideas and stuff too, it's just like, just give it a shot. You never fail until you give up, right? I've had businesses fail. In fact, I've had businesses fail and then people didn't like me because I thought I was effing it off, even though I gave it my entire thing. And that was hard. It crushed me to not only have the business die, but also to have your friends turn against you. But I didn't give up. I persisted. I stuck with it because I believe in entrepreneurship as a means of providing sustenance and abundance for my family and helping other people to solve their common problems. All right, now, before we end here and bring up the one, the only, at D Broze Live Free, aka Derrick Bush, I want to talk about exit and build life design strategy in your own life, and then how it can collectively, how we can all exit and build a better world. All right. So here's a couple quick steps you can do. This whole exit and build life design thing. I encourage everyone to take a self-assessment, right? Broze did a lot of this in this holistic self-assessment. I did this life design workshop recently, and it has us consciously examine the areas of our life that are not in alignment with our values. So for example, if your only email address is Gmail, maybe set up a Proton Mail. I set up a Proton Mail. I'm like, hey, Derrick and Ramiro, I'm doing a great job, aren't I? They're like, no, man, that shit's corrupt. C Templar's the one to go with now. Nowadays, they're like, no, not even that one. We're going to make our own email service, our own server. All right. But it's all about taking those steps, right? So maybe the kids are in government school. like, shit, that's not a good place for my kids to be. So I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to come up with ideas. Consciously examine the areas of your life that aren't in alignment with your values and take stock, and then come up with a plan, right? But first, believe in yourself and your ability to make it change. Believe in yourself. Understand that you're a total badass. I see a lot of badassery in the audience. Take a look around. Take a look around. Some badasses there. I see some badasses there. Each and every one of you are infinitely powerful human beings who have not even begun to tap into your true potential. And it all starts with lifting those barriers. You ever driven a car and you're like, yeah, you're with your friends in high school. You're like, let's go 110, baby. And they're like, there's a governor. We can't go past 100. You all have a governor in your mind, myself included. We could be doing so much more, and we ought to be doing so much more. Do it for yourself, do it for your family, and do it for the future generations to come. Take stock, come up with a plan. Start with baby steps. Little itty bitty things that you can do. I got news for you too. Like all these people like Freedom Cell Network, that sounds so risky. They're gonna come take us away with mass arrests, blah, 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 blah. There's that limiting belief again. None of the stuff that we're doing is illegal for the most part, right? It's not illegal to pull your kids out of government school. And if you live in a state where it is, get the hell out of there. Come to Texas. It's not illegal to grow your own food. It's not illegal to encrypt your communication. It's not illegal to do peer-to-peer private exchange with cryptocurrency, right? So let's do the stuff now while we still have the opportunity. Take stock of your life, different areas. Health, maybe you got some pharmaceuticals you're still holding on to. Oh, the high blood pressure medicine. I don't know what else I would do. Change your diet, visit a naturopath. When it comes to your kids, I strongly encourage folks to abandon artificial authority because I said so, right? Let us not strike our kids either. I believe that's the worst thing we can do to our children because it teaches them that violence is an acceptable means of changing someone's behavior, just setting them up for statism. My dad was always like, I don't know about this parenting style, John. He said, you know what, how about we revisit it in maybe 5 or 10 years and we'll see how this unschooling thing's worked out for you. 5 or 10 years come by, I'm like, holy shit, my kids are so damn free. It's so hard to parent. But they're great kids. They're doing good in life. Woo! It's all about balance, right? Not just total freedom, but leadership. Instead of being an authoritarian in their life, be a protectorate and a wise leader. So much easier said than done. Wow, John really seems like a great father. And you see me in action. It's like, I really don't appreciate the way that you spoke to your kids just then. You're the best. I love you. I slip up all the time. And she's like, I do not deserve to be talked that way. She's not like, well, I'll tell you something else. You're not like that. You're so sweet, and I love you. All right. Find a Rebecca for your lives, guys. It'll change the whole game, but not this one. All right. Okay. What other areas? How many people, I venture to guess, myself included, that most of us get a significant amount of our food sustenance from the grocery store, right? There's some guys in there. Rita's like, I got goats, I got ducks. Where's Rita Bobita? She's not even here. Damn it, Rita. Slowly but surely, link up with the local community-supported agriculture. Start the garden in your backyard. Chickens, ducks, whatever. The vegans are like, damn him. I was with him the whole time until he talked about killing animals. Sorry, no offense. Anyway, come up with those areas, technology, money, finance, and start to slowly move the needle towards more freedom. It doesn't have to be absolute, but take those baby steps. It's my contention that when we do this in our own lives, when we have more effectively exited those systems, when we are trading amongst ourselves, when we're working with one another, when we're employing one another, when we have a plumbing issue, we go to the, not the yellow pages, we go to the black and yellow pages. We actually used to have a directory called the black and yellow pages back in the day. And we work with one another. Our kids are going to their own homeschool co-ops. It makes it easier for us to transition to true political autonomy. So I have this vision. It's called the Confederation of Freedom Cell Communities, and it works like this. We do what we can in the present moment to leave the big cities that are authoritarians, where the technocracy is being rolled out. There's much more freedom out in the country, as you can experience here at FloteFest. We leave the cities. We purchase land. We purchase land by ourselves and do a homestead. We purchase land cooperatively and do an intentional community. And we work together to build those institutions of resiliency and interconnectivity amongst our community and our tribe. And we grow through sheer strength in numbers. I'm talking, we set a goal for the Central Texas Freedom Cell Network to have 10,000 people in 2022. We have a long ways to go, but it's one of those sexy goals that pulls us. And you're like, well, what do we have to do in order to do that? We need to do more events. We need to have big land summits. We need to blah, blah, blah. We need to have people recruit, right? But my vision is like, what if we're doing this in Central Texas, people can do it elsewhere. Derrick's doing it in Mexico. There's a large contingent in New Hampshire. There's some people in Arizona, in the Arizona area. And so the idea is there's so damn many of us, we've effectively decoupled from the statist, centralized, coercive institutions. It makes the transition to political autonomy that much easier. And I envision not getting people elected, but sending an ambassador from our community to negotiate with the bureaucrats, with the local government to say, look, here's the deal. We no longer use any of your services, except for the roads, those damn roads. But to be honest, you guys are doing a pretty piss poor job on the roads. I don't know if everybody drove through Milam County. Milam County. It's like, you guys aren't even doing a good job. I want to be so financially abundant. We're like, here's the deal. We're not going to do the property tax anymore, but we'll fix the damn roads. We'll hire our own crew and we'll come in here and fix them because you guys are doing a pretty piss poor job. But we're also going to be good stewards and good members of the community. We're not going to be everyone's like, oh, it sounds a lot like David Koresh. Sounds like Ruby Ridge. It's like, no, we are going to be active and vibrant in the business community. Our kids are going to play with your kids. There's this Bastrop Christmas tree lighting thing they do, and I'm from Austin, so we have this Austin Trail of Lights. It's like epic, crazy, huge production. Takes forever to wait in line, blah, blah. We go to the Bastrop County one. It's like, this is pretty dinky. So one of these days, I'm going to buy a big, giant Christmas tree and donate it to the city of Bastrop and be like, hey, we want you guys to have an enjoyable time. I'm here to support the community. It makes it easier when we collectively declare our independence. And that's the plan that I have. It's a peaceful transition to political autonomy, and it all starts with each and every one of us first accepting and understanding that we have it in ourselves to find and experience true freedom in our lives. It has us coming up with an awesome plan to do it, a strategy, exit and build strategy, working together with one another, and then taking massive action. And I find no reason whatsoever why, if we can do all these things and we can do them well, we can experience true freedom in our lifetime. So I want to thank you so much for being with me on this journey. And with that, I'll end it. Thank you so much. All right, well, I'll introduce our next speaker. Take it upon myself. All right, our next speaker is an incredible human being, an amazing activist. He gets so much stuff done. Talk about massive action. He's a visionary. I love the guy. He's done so much work in the world. He's doing these tours, crisscrossing the country, turning people out down in Mexico, growing the Freedom Cell Network in Mexico. He's got the ideas, but more importantly, he puts these ideas into practice, and I'm super grateful to call him a friend. Give it up for Derrick Broze, ladies and gentlemen. John should have been out on the comedy stage last night, shouldn't he? That's the best thing, though, is when you get to a point where your message is kind of, doesn't even feel like you're giving a speech anymore. You're just sharing your truth, and, you know, it works. So I have a couple of things to mention before we get deep. Who wants to go deep? Let's go. Who's all about that deep? Sorry, I might have listened to too many jokes last night, so probably. Wow, that was a little wild. That was a little wild last night, wasn't it? Earmuffs. All right. Yeah, before we go deep, I wanted to just mention a couple of things. This is just for my talk. You know, everybody does things in their own way, but if I could please just have all the vaccinated on this side of the room and all the unvaccinated over here. Yeah, okay. I got a middle finger. Thank you. First time. Great response. I'm thankful. But, you know, obviously I joke about the vaccines. It's been a big issue the last 2 years. But, you know, I do want to preface the talk with just mentioning that, you know, why I joke about vaccines. There's one thing that I want to say that I see periodically in our community. And when I say that over the next 45 minutes, I'm kind of speaking broadly, right? Because in case anybody's noticed, if you haven't noticed, the community has grown quite a bit, right? You have the merging of the libertarian, voluntarist, agorist, anarchists, and the spiritual crowd, and the crypto people, and the conspiracy theorists, and the health freedom movement moms, and, you know, everything in between. And it's beautiful. We probably don't agree on a lot of issues, and I never come to an event like this assuming we're all on the same page, right? But I think the one thing that really does unite people is the belief in self-ownership, right? Is that something, bodily autonomy, my body, right? Like, whatever issue you look at it, like, I think that's one of the uniting things. And so I just want to say that for myself, you know, all the events that I do and any space that I'm ever in, I am not the person that's going to say, if you're wearing a mask, you're vaccinated, you're not welcome here. I think anybody taking that approach is bullshit and is not helping grow things. And in fact, a lot of the people you might look against, like those stupid sheeple, they got the vaccines.
I don't know if you noticed, friends, but some of them wake up after they get the shots, and they're going to be looking for help. We're going to be the ones that need to offer the help. So as far as I'm concerned, anybody is welcome here, whatever their status may be, and it's really none of my business. And the reason I kind of share that as well, and this is going to come to a surprise to many of you, but I actually got vaccinated last week to go see my grandmother. Fuck no, I didn't. I'm just playing. I ain't putting that poison in my body. Fuck that. But that was great. There was like dead silence in here. I think half of you were like, what the fuck just happened?
I was sad. Let it burn his books.
Yeah, that's the proper response, right? Just go to the other polar opposite. It seems like there's a lot of that in our community. Wait, this thing didn't work. The other extreme must be the answer. Whew. All right, so let's get into some different ideas today if we can. John really kind of went over a lot of the things that I'm going to cover, and you know, we're working on similar goals in different arenas, but I do want to say that I think I'm going to start the way John ended, with just reminding us that there is so much potential right now in this moment. I don't know if you guys have felt it, but honestly, despite all the insanity, the last 2 years have been the best 2 years of my life, because I'm moving closer and closer to my goals, right? COVID-1984 has been the greatest motivator, you know, for many of us, right? And as John said, it's been a great recruitment tool. They're looking out for us. They're trying to make sure we get more numbers on our side. And that's just that, however you want to look at it, from a spiritual sense to just physics, you know, equal and opposite reaction. The more they push, the more people will continue to wake up, right? Anybody have friends or family who weren't questioning things before COVID and now are, or like starting to get on the edge? That's going to continue to happen, my friends. Every time they want to push in a more extreme way, there will be people on the edges who are already kind of not trusting of the system and like, yeah, I don't know, this doesn't make sense, who will then be like, oh my God, you know what? I need to call that crazy friend I have. Hey, tell me more about this great reset thing that you're talking about. They're going to come to us seeking help and guidance, right? And so I feel like there is just so much potential right now. There's so much abundance available, in addition to the reality that this is 2022 and their plan is 2030. Is everybody kind of coming to terms with that? The United Nations and the World Economic Forum call this the decade of transformation. They're working with every multinational corporation, every major bank in the world, nearly every single government, to put in trillions of dollars to, you know, create this reset that they've been calling for, Agenda 2030 reset. And now they're even hosting things like the World Government Summit, where they're having panels that are literally called, are we ready for a new world order? Like, it's not even hidden, if it ever really was, it's just pretty much out in the open, right? So we have some realities to contend with, and we shouldn't put our heads in the sand at all. Like, that's not what I'm here to say. And, you know, if you know my work, The Conscious Resistance, I talk a lot about both the importance of the internal, the spiritual journey, as well as the physical realm, getting free in those ways. And in my experience, a lot of people in the spiritual, conscious, whatever you want to call them, communities, have historically been the kind of people that want to put their heads in the sand, right? Don't talk about the bad things because you're going to manifest it. Don't bring the bad vibes, you know, just keep it chill. And I'm a big believer in meditation. If you've heard my story, you know, I discovered meditation in prison. I got addicted to drugs when I was 20 years old and went to prison. That was the beginning of my awakening. Meditation and prayer were a huge part of that. Those are vital, important tools. But meditation and prayer alone don't create the outcomes we want without action behind it, right? So it's the sort of bringing that together. So we do have an immense opportunity in front of us right now. There's so much potential, but you also have to actually do something about it, right? You can't just sit on the internet and complain anymore. If that was ever the answer, you know, my talk is titled today, It's Not Enough to Be Awake Anymore. It's time to be activated. And I'm going to explain more of that. But I think that's a sentiment that I've held for years, like that. When I first started waking up 2009, 2010, watching Endgame, reading some Jim Mars, reading Ron Paul's book, all kinds of things, just woke me up, right? In the beginning, I was just like, I had my freak out period. I don't know if you guys realize this, but waking up, it's actually like a grieving process. You know, there's the psychological model for grieving, the Kubler-Ross model, and it describes the stages of denial, anger, sadness, acceptance, those sort of things, right? It's not really like a rigid system that you pass through each of these things for a week at a time, or everybody goes through every stage. It's just like, these are some things you might experience while you're grieving. And if you think about the waking up process, you're waking up to realize that most of the people in the institutions that you've been taught to believe you're supposed to trust and, you know, have faith in, that you were lied to about, and by people that you trust, your family, your parents, your pastor, your politicians, your teachers, etc. That is a very difficult process for many of us. And so some people, they're like, no, the denial happens, right? There's no fucking way. This can't be real. This is too big. You know, that's crazy. This is just conspiracy theorist stuff, whatever. Maybe you keep going down the rabbit hole and things keep getting confirmed. And then before you know it, it's like, oh my God, this is happening. You have the freak out period. And maybe you get into an angry phase. Like, did anybody get angry when they woke up? Like, how dare they do this? This is fucked up. Like, they're doing this to my kids. Like, you know, just all those emotions, right? And then maybe even the sadness. And this is where some people get stuck. There's no way I can't believe this is too big. It's too massive. Great Reset, New World Order, Agenda 2030. These people have been working for at least 100 years. How can we ever possibly overcome this, right? Just a whole range of emotions. And in the ideal circumstances, you go through all of that in a healthy time and manner that's different for everybody, but you get to a place of acceptance where you're like, okay, yeah, this is real. These things are happening, and it's scary, and it makes me a little sad, but what can I do about it now, right? Then you get to a place of solutions. That's the ideal path we might take, but clearly that's not the path that all of us take, because some of us get stuck in that angry phase, which I tend to call the Alex Jones phase, because you know, whatever you think about the man, it's like if you watch too much Alex Jones, like you think the world is about to end. Like literally, I was watching a lot of Alex Jones when I first woke up, and it was that feeling for the first year of like, holy shit, oh my God, the police state is like here, it's about to happen, it's about to happen. And I had to go through a period of like, okay, it's happening, but maybe not tomorrow, right? And here we are, and it's happening, right? It's in our faces. But the reality is some people, they get stuck in that phase, that angry phase, that sad phase. And in my book, I talk about it. I call it the defeatist trap, or even the conspiracy, the rabbit hole trap, right? Like you get stuck in constantly researching things, which is important. You know, I'm a journalist. This is what I do daily. Has anybody seen my documentary series, The Pyramid of Power? If not, I encourage you to go to thepyramidofpower.net. I mean, I spend time going down these rabbit holes. I just spent a week researching the crimes of the intelligence community, and I nearly black-pilled myself. For those who don't know that term, it's just like if you've been black-pilled, like we say red pill, it's like somebody who has come to the point of reading and learning so much that you just feel like things are hopeless. And after doing this research, I was like, wow, I can see why people feel hopeless. I can see, like, I've known a lot of these things, Operation Gladio, Phoenix Program, all this stuff, murders, rapes, overthrowing governments, installing puppets. Just, it's crazy. These are the people we're dealing with, what I would consider to be the personification of pure evil, right? And how do you take in all that information and still feel like, wow, we got this, we're good, everything's good? You know, it's rough. So I can understand why people get stuck in those mindsets. But again, we're in a beautiful period of abundance right now. There's so much opportunity. So some people, they get stuck in the Alex Jones phase, they get stuck in the defeatism. John was kind of pointing to this earlier, and I've seen this all over Mexico and all over the US. You really think they're going to let you grow your own food? You ever heard of Waco? You know, just these sort of like these defeatist mindsets, and the built-in assumption, as John said, well, just because Klaus Schwab says you'll own nothing and be happy, people are like, well, obviously that's what's going to happen, right? I mean, there's no way we could change that. I don't have a choice, do I? It's a very disempowering mindset, right? And that's what some people consider to be awake. That's not awake to me. Like, that's just like, you're depressed. Like you learn some things and now you're depressed and you think the world's screwed. And that can be a very dark place to be, especially in COVID times. As John also mentioned, because of the Freedom Cell Network and the Greater Reset. Anybody familiar with the Greater Reset activation or event? Guys, it's been wonderful. The first 3 events, we're reaching people in more than 20 countries around the world. The live event in Mexico, we had 400 people from more than a dozen countries. I know John had a good turnout here in Texas. There is a thirst right now for solutions. And a lot of these people, and again, I'm not assuming what our ideologies here and what our awareness is around here, but I know that there are some people who understands the idea of the non-aggression principle, who feels like that's intrinsic to their belief. Like, those are the voluntarists, the libertarians, the anarchists. Maybe some of you are less familiar with that. That's okay. But the point is, the movement's growing with all these people who maybe they don't have all the philosophical backing or the economic understanding or the deep conspiracy research, but they know that something's wrong, and they're looking for answers and they're looking for solutions. So that's a beautiful step. It's like, okay, now we're looking for what's next. But many people are still in that reactive stage, right? That they get stuck in that Alex Jones phase. Maybe this is what I'm seeing where I'm from in Mexico. Tens of thousands, at least, of Canadians, Europeans, Americans, and Australians have come to Mexico, because Mexico over the last 2 years has been one of the only countries in the entire world that did not require quarantines, tests, or shots in any way. And so because of that, there's just this mass exodus of people who got out of Canada before the domestic restrictions. I'm sure everybody here is familiar, but if you're not familiar, as of October of last year, unvaccinated Canadians, people in their own country, can't take a bus, can't take a train, can't take a flight domestically without being vaccinated. So a lot of them saw that on the horizon and they flooded into Mexico. So there's a lot of people looking for solutions, but it's also it's still in that reactionary state, right? Like, oh no, they're doing something bad, I'm gonna run away and come here, right? And so in that process, what I'm gonna share a little bit today is I'm seeing a lot of the same mistakes. Miriam and I just did the activation tour in the fall. I see a lot of friends that we met around the country. It's really great to see you guys again. We did 30 cities in 60 days, all across the U.S., from, you know, all the way to the Pacific Northwest, the Northeast, and down to Florida and Texas, of course, and California. And this is last year in the height of all the Omicron, you know, BS going on, and got to see some of the best and the worst things happening in this country, right? And everywhere we're going, we're meeting people through the Freedom Cell Network, meeting people through the Greater Reset, who are telling us, you know, but when COVID happened, I felt alone. I felt isolated. None of my family wanted to listen to me. They all think I'm crazy. I lost my job. You know, I'm stuck at home. My kids think I'm crazy. My parents think I'm crazy. You hear all different versions of this story. And then people saying, and then I used the Freedom Cell website to find people near me. Now we're starting a garden together. Now we're buying land together. We pulled our kids out of school together. Or I went to a local watch party for the Greater Reset, and I met all these people in my community that I never knew were there. And so the first step is that people realize they get out of that defeatist trap by recognizing they're not alone. I mean, does everybody understand? I know that each of us have experienced that in different ways. Like the moment, maybe even for something like this, like, is this the first event for anybody who's like never come to a freedom event in person, right? A few of us. And isn't it a great feeling to realize, like, holy shit, these aren't just random strangers on the internet. There are real people like me from all over the world who feel these ways and who are asking questions. Again, we've got differences of opinion, but that's what this movement's all about, right? We're not trying to create a robot army of all of us that agree on everything all the time, right? That's not freedom. That's diversity and the other shit they're selling us. You know, we want true, real freedom, and inside that space, you have to have diversity of opinions and beliefs. So one of the first steps that we've been seeing is helping people realize that they're not alone, helping people see the importance of that. And then from that, okay, you're not alone. Now you realize there's other people. We're creating our own culture. That's what it really comes down to, guys, if you understand that, right? And it's interesting. We were having this conversation the other day, the dynamic between the words cult and culture, right? Like, it's there. There's, you know, I've been accused of starting a cult a couple of times. Like, I don't think it's a freedom cult, I guess, but I'm not in charge. Nobody's in charge, right? But you think about that word culture of what we're doing, right? They want us to have a culture that is all the things that you guys see in the mainstream world. Whether you're left, right, whatever, there are things in that mainstream society that we don't recognize as aligned with our values. So we say, you know what? I don't like the way they do those big mainstream festivals with supporting Budweiser and military propaganda and all these mainstream bands pushing propaganda to my kids' minds. So let's start our own festivals. Let's start our own conferences. Let's start our own movements. Let's buy our own land. Let's build our own communities. That's what we are witnessing right now, guys. But this is a proactive movement that you have to choose to be a part of. You have a couple of paths. You can come to FloteFest next year. You can go to Jackalope in a couple months, go to Midfest, go to Exit and Build Land Summit. You can go to the Greater Reset next January. You can go to Anarchapulco if you want. You can attend the whole circuit of festival events and never do a damn thing beyond that. And I see this. You just keep coming to the party, keep hanging out. Yeah, like I got the message and stuff. But then you go back home to your day job and you're still dependent on the grocery store. You're still dependent on the mainstream financial systems. You're still using the banks. How is that awake? I don't get how that's awake. And I'm not here to say I'm the arbiter of who's awake and whatnot, but I think we need to really come to a point where we're actively not only measuring the impact of our actions, but we're really tangibly, as John said, I call it the holistic self-assessment. It's one of my books. You can download it for free at theconsciousresistance.com. It just helps you look at your entire life and say, I claim to have these principles, but then when I look at my different relationships, I don't actually live up to those principles. I claim that I want to create a better world and down with the bankers and down with the New World Order, etc. But I still got my money in Bank of America. And if you guys go to weforum.org/partners right now, weforum.org/partners, the World Economic Forum website, every single bank that you're using is listed on their website right now. And you guys all know how fractional reserve banking works. So when you put your money in those banks, they could be taking your money and literally funding Great Reset projects. I don't see how that's helping us. I don't see how that's moving the cause closer, but it still feels good to come to a Flote Fest and we're awake and we're free, right? We have to look at our actions. We have to say, are we tangibly moving the ball forward? Like, for example, this is something that actually an old friend, Adam Kokesh, told me years ago, like that did stick with me, is to really, activists need to be willing to ask themselves, and we're all activists to different degrees. We all just work in different arenas. You don't have to be a podcast host or, speaking on stage to be an activist. I think it's the way that we live our lives, right? But some of us are more active than others. But we need to be willing to say, okay, I've had the podcast for 5 years and I still got no new listeners and I'm not really reaching anybody. And it feels good, like a little pat on my back. I like doing this. It's a fun hobby. But after 5 years, maybe I should ask, is there a better way to spend my time? Is there a more effective strategy I can try? Maybe that wasn't working for me, right? And being willing to be honest and say, all right, Let me try something new. I mean, that's all I've done over the years, is do things that work. And when I hit a brick wall, just go to something new. Don't sob over it. Don't get stuck on why you failed and all the things that could creep in, the doubts and the fears. Oh my God, maybe people don't like hearing me. Maybe I'm no good at this. I should just go back to my day job and forget about all this freedom stuff. You got to push past that and be honest and say, okay, well, what can I do that's going to be effective? What does the community need right now, right? What are the needs within our community? I've heard several people saying the next step is we need to start getting into private defense and being able to defend ourselves, or going towards the stages that John talks about. I believe that that is the vision we want. I mean, the way I look at it is the Freedom Cell Network, the Greater Reset community, whatever we represent within the larger freedom community, we're like the solutions caucus, if you will. We're the ones who actually want to do shit about it. For the rest of you who just want to go party and stuff, that's there too. And that's always going to be there. And in fact, it's going to be there as you march into the technocratic FEMA camps. It's still going to be there. You'll still get to, but you'll be awake and you'll be free and everything will be good. But my point is, we have to do more. This is the first step. You wake up, you react, and then you move into a stage of action. Okay, now I know things are bad. Now we're finding each other. We're using the Freedom Cell Network. We're using Flote. We're using social media. We're getting our groups. We're creating real world communities. Now we're creating our own festivals. We're creating our own music events. We're building the culture, right? But it's not just a lifestyle. Like, it has to actually involve physical changes. We had a de-Google workshop going on. That's the amazing thing. How many people here have Google in their pocket right now? Have Apple in their pocket right now? Nearly every single one of us, right? Except for those who bought the above phone or one of the other options. And I'm not shaming anybody. I'm saying it's because they've monopolized everything. It's difficult to get out of their systems, right? You have to go out of your way to find Ramiro to get an above phone, or find somebody similar, or you have to go learn those skills. Some people won't do it because it's too hard. It takes too much time. It involves learning a new skill. I got to work with people. Oh my God, I have to leave my house. All the excuses you can come up with, right? Oh, it's just so convenient though. I've got all my contacts in here. I've got, the bank's close to my house. Why would I want to switch? We could come up with a million excuses. That's what they are, to not change our actions and to not change our behaviors. And I've been saying this for years now. I mean, I've been involved in this movement, so to speak, since 2000. I think the first Liberty event I spoke at was Anarchy in the NYC, if anybody remembers that, back in 2013, April 2013. I was all up there really nervous talking about Buddhism and anarchism. Like, oh my God, are these people going to listen? And even back then, people just wanted to hang out and party. I could already see, I was like, okay, so there's some people in the movement who get it, and there's others who are just there to come hang out and do the events and go to the bar afterwards and hang out. Hey, Larkin, hey, Derrick, I want to hang out. Let me get photos and do that, and then go back to their job working for the government or something. I don't know. But to me, this was always about, like, I need to change my life so I can be more free, right? And the other, so that's one point, is like being willing to measure our impact and our effectiveness, right? As I'm traveling the United States, it's costing time, money, lots of money, energy. Miriam and I are exhausted. Sometimes it's a strain on our relationship. It can be intense, but it's worth it, right? Because when I go to these events, like I said, we did 30 cities across the US. We did 17 events in Mexico over the last 6 weeks. Everywhere we're going, we're connecting to people from as small as 4 people to 150 people, on average 70 to 90 people in every city, who are just like you guys, who are saying, hey, Derrick, I watched this video and man, it helped me in this way. Or this article you wrote, or this thing you did, or God, the Greater Reset, you guys helped me find these new people. I can measure the impact of the actions I'm taking. And that's not because I'm special, it's just because I'm putting the time in. And if I was doing these tours and it's like, man, these are just, I'm wasting all my money, nobody's showing up, people just don't care. Like, I guess it's just, I would try something different. Because it is exhausting. It's probably going to be another couple of years before I do what I just did, but it was worth it. And it is worth it to come drive. Like, we literally just crossed the border 2 days ago to come here to FloteFest. So we came to Mexico to be here with you guys. We're going to Exit and Build. I'm doing some other events. But my point is, we have to think as individuals and as activists, maybe you have a podcast, maybe you make memes, maybe you come to events like this and your action is just talking to people, networking, or maybe you do build the decentralized technology we need to go to the next stage. Maybe you're building the next blockchain that's going to help us, right? I can't do those things. We need those people just as much as we need loudmouths like myself and John to share the message, right? So we all have a role to play, and we have to figure out what that is, and it's going to look different. So that's one thing, is be honest with yourself and be willing to ask if the actions you are taking are really leading to freedom or to anything new, right? Be willing to understand that. Now, I want to take a step back before I go into some of the other answers. I actually do think that despite myself and John kind of railing against getting lost down the rabbit holes, I do still believe in trying to wake people up. That's just, I don't think it's a path everybody needs to take, but I like to have my foot in that world, doing journalism, writing articles, producing documentaries, doing videos and interviews to try to get the people who are still on the edges, right? Like, because again, there's a lot of people in the movement who think they're awake, but they're so black-pilled they think there's no solutions, or they've never heard of the Freedom Cell Network, or they've never heard of FloteFest, or they haven't met you and you have the perfect thing that they need to complete their project, right? Or vice versa. There are still a lot of good people out there, guys, who I believe can and will join us when the time comes. And frankly, I still think we're vastly outnumbered and that we need a lot more people. Even with the numbers we have, we can do good things. And that's the beautiful thing. We're seeing the beginning stage of that. But if you understand the exit and build strategy that we've outlined, and I was inspired by Samuel Konkin. Anybody who knows your libertarian history, he's a founder of Agorism. And I encourage you to go back and study his works, not because he was a god or something, but because he did have some foresight. And the things he wrote about are what we are experiencing right now. And one of the things he described is that we would pass through this 4 stages from complete statism towards freedom. And he started talking about these pockets of agorists, which I think are freedom cells, would start to pop up around the world in different parts, right? As people get sick of the state shit, as it's the inflation and the taxation, all the things, people start looking for answers. That's the stage we're at now. Now we're finding each other, we're getting organized. And so Konkin believed that this movement would progress. We would start to see parallel networks forming. That's what the Freedom Cell Network is the beginning of. And it's not the only one, but we're building these networks. I mean, it's such a special time to be alive. But ultimately what Konkin believed, and I think our buddy Free Ross Ulbricht is unfortunately a great example of this. Konkin also warned that if we move too fast, the state would smash down. Because at the moment, even though our numbers are growing daily around the world. I mean, I talk to activists, part of the Freedom Cell Network in India, Australia, South Africa, Germany. I mean, this is a truly worldwide movement, guys. So understand that. But we are still very early in the stages, right? We're at that sweet spot. There's this book written years ago, like 101 Things to Do to the Revolution. I know some of you guys have heard about it. And it said, yeah, it says something like, right, we're at that awkward point where it's too early to shoot the bastards. But, so we got to focus on solutions. We can't I don't think the movement is strong enough, not to say that that's the answer. I don't agree with that as the answer. Make that clear, right? But we're not quite strong enough to just get to the point where John and I do envision. We want to stop paying property taxes. We're not free if we're paying property tax for the rest of our lives. We want to get to the point where the network is strong enough where we can peacefully but assertively say, hey, you know what? As John said, hey, you guys are not doing great. We're not even using your services anymore. So we now have enough strength to come to them as an equal and say, hey, we have representatives now. This is our community diplomat coming to interact with the U.S. government and saying, this is what we're willing to do with you, and this is what we're not willing to accept. And that might sound crazy, and maybe it won't even come in our lifetimes. I believe it will. We might be old men by then, but this is the vision we're working towards. So if that's a little scary, it's okay. We're going to get there. Don't be freaked out. They will try to target us. They will try to label us. They're already doing this. I mean, this is, again, be aware of the things happening, but don't get stuck in the fear. Is it a fact that myself and John and our names in the Freedom Cell Network were listed in a Fusion Center document from the police department? Absolutely. That was back in 2016. They were already watching myself and John. We've got leaked documents from the Blue Leaks last year, right? And that can be a little unnerving. It's like, oh, wow, back in 2016, they were taking note that John invited me to speak in Austin about freedom cells. They were watching since the beginning. Good. Let them watch. Maybe they'll wake up in the process, because we're not doing anything wrong, guys. We cannot be consumed by fear. And these fears of, well, what if you get the land, Derrick, and then they come and kill you, whether it's the cartel or the government or some criminal, what are you going to do then? Well, at least I die living by my values rather than staying safe but just submitting to their society. Like, it's not a question. What else is there, right, but to live by your values? So none of us invite that. None of us want that. None of us welcome that. Nobody's trying to go out in a bloody hail of gunfire, right? Fuck that. But if it's like, hey, shit, here we go. All right, man, I'm going to know I did good with my creator. I tried to bring good to this world. And if I got to die defending the values in my home, then, like, okay, that's what it is. I work towards never having to do that. But is that a possibility? Yes, let's not lie to ourselves. Sure, that could be a possibility. These people are ruthless. I listed the number of programs. These people have no problem killing people, doing whatever they want, and they have power over the largest media empire in the world to propagandize the rest of our friends and family to think, yeah, he was a crazy person, he was one of those extremists we keep hearing about. It's sad, but maybe he should have taken the vaccine, whatever, right? And so we're working against the big machine without a doubt, but there are solutions, guys. And so I was getting to the point that I still think it's important to try to wake up people, right? This is what I do with the consciousresistance.com. This is what I'm doing with the Pyramid of Power documentary series. And by the way, just confirmed Larkin's going to be in season 4, so that'll be cool. And I think that there are still people out there who have tools that we don't have just yet. I mean, if we took the time and went around here in this entire campground and really just got to know everybody, and I've known this for years, we would have every single resource we need right here within this. Whether it's not the person here, they're like, oh, but my cousin knows that somebody who has that thing you need, right? Like, we have everything we need here already. So it is time to start building. And yet, people like myself and others who feel inclined, we will continue to try to wake up the masses so that the numbers never stop flowing in, right? And that's what Conklin was saying, is that as people start to realize that the state is becoming less stable and they're paying higher taxes and all this stuff, and they're seeing us over here with our free-range kids and our organic food and our healthy permaculture outside of COVID-1984, they're going to start to flood in. This is why people are coming to Mexico. This is why people are coming to Texas and coming to Florida. It's already happening. What he predicted is happening now. But it's one important thing to remember. He did warn, if we start getting maybe too bold, and who knows what's the right move, when the right time, but it's just something to keep in mind, that they will smash you down. What happened to Ross Ulbricht? He built a website. He was specifically building around the principles of agorism and trying to build something, a website where people could exchange goods and value without the government having any hand in that. And some of that was drugs, some of that was all kinds of things. He didn't let violent, things happen. He didn't let child porn and stuff like that happen, but it was generally a freed market. And I was there reporting, as was John, on his trial and his sentencing. Ross was sentenced to 3 life sentences. He's our age. He's 37 years old, the same age that we are. He's going to spend the rest of his life in prison until we break him out of there. And and I mean, being in the courtroom, guys, honestly, just all sincerity, being in the courtroom, and this fucking judge, she's standing there with the U.S. flag behind her, and she's like, I'm tasked standing here. I feel humbled standing in front of the flag that I am tasked to carry out this sentence. And she said to Ross, she said, I'm sentencing you to 3 life sentences to make sure to send a message so that no one will ever dare take up your flag again. And they specifically mentioned agorism. They don't give a fuck if you vote. They don't give a fuck if you protest, if you keep doing that. They're more afraid of us exiting and building. That's what they're afraid of. That's what they're afraid of, Ross, is that if the Silk Road became a success, people would see, we don't need government to, like, I'm using Amazon basically, but the government's not getting any money out of it. And that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of that they will lose their tax cattle in the big picture. But ultimately, it's that fear that we finally recognize that their whole system is built on this false belief and their authority. And the more people we keep waking up to that, there will come that flood of people. And guys, I don't want to be in a scarcity mindset. I want to be in a position where we've got our land in Mexico. I've got my family taken care of. And if and when you or your families or the people to come need help, I can offer a helping hand instead of saying, sorry, there's no space here for you, right? That's just the task I'm playing, because I think that, man, we're just at the beginning. Things are going to get fun. They're going to get bumping. And man, I just can't explain it to you. I hope you guys really understand the moment we're in. Like, just take a moment to sink it in. Some of us, I'm still young in this game. I've only been doing it 12 years. And I know that people have been a part of these movements for decades. My grandmother, I was joking about my grandmother earlier. My grandma is actually one of my biggest influences. When I first started waking up in 2009, 2010, I went and saw Ron Paul speak at the U of H, and I was reading Jim Marrs' Rule by Secrecy, and I came to my grandpa and grandma. They were visiting. I was like, Grandpa, have you guys ever heard of the Federal Reserve? And they looked at me. My grandpa, it was really cool. My grandpa, he's passed now. He kind of patted me on the head. He's like, you need to be careful who you talk to about this. Not everybody's going to be willing to listen, and some people are going to think you're crazy. And I realized my grandparents been awake for like 50 years. They've been waiting for it. Like, oh my God, we got a grandson. It's awesome. My grandma has a farm in Kentucky that she's been living and growing her own food since she was a little girl. Like, she's known this kind of stuff was coming. They were way ahead of the curve, right? She is one of my biggest sources of strength and inspiration. But not only her, my living ancestor, but all the ancestors that came before me. Guys, it's important for us to recognize that no matter what skin color you have, what language you speak, your place of your religion, your origin, your place of birth, etc., that all of our ancestors had to go through blood, sweat, and tears to get us here today in these moments to be alive. Think about that. And I will not fail my ancestors or my nieces and nephews who are just coming to this world, or your children or my potential future children, by saying, you know what? I knew the Great Reset was coming, but it was just so much easier to stay comfortable, to keep doing the things I'm used to keep my money in the bank, to keep using Google, to keep playing their systems, because all that sounds like a lot of work. I'd rather just go to the festivals and go to the conferences and pretend like I'm being free, because the actual freedom sounds like too much work, right? Because nobody here can claim ignorance. How many people are familiar with the term social credit score? The Great Reset, technocracy, Agenda 2030. Nobody here can claim that they're not ignorant. And if those terms don't mean anything to you, I encourage you to go to my website and watch some of the documentaries and reports I've done. But my point here is that we're sitting here today in May 2022. 8 years from their Agenda 2030 in full awareness of what's on the horizon. Nobody here can say, I didn't know, I never got the memo, I didn't see that documentary, I never heard of this, you'll own nothing to be happy. So we can't claim ignorance. So if we fail the coming generations and we fail our ancestors, it's because we chose not to act, right? If the future they want, which is you'll own nothing and be happy, comes into fruition, it'll only be because we didn't stop it. And honestly, I don't know that we can stop it. This is the other kind of cold hard truth, I think. Trillions of dollars, every multinational corporation, nearly every government in the world, decades and decades of planning. I don't know that we can stop it. But the idea of exiting and building, exiting from systems that don't align with our values and building better ones, to me at least says that the coming generations will have a choice. Do you want to live in the smart city, technocratic, you'll own nothing and be happy world? Or do you want to come be a part of this beautiful new thing we're creating? And none of us can predict what that might look like or where will be the most free. Everybody's trying to figure out, should I go to Mexico, Texas, which town? I mean, at some point, you got to put roots down. That's all it comes down to, right? Because we need freedom everywhere. We don't want everybody just to come to Central Texas, although there's a growing contingent here. We need freedom everywhere. And maybe for periods of time, places like California might be a little lost. But even then, we got people like Jason Bassler holding it down in California. Even in the worst places like Australia, the Freedom Cell network is strong, right? Despite all the insanity you guys have seen in Australia, people are still organizing. The human spirit is still alive, right? They haven't extinguished it yet. But they're working on it, my friends. And it's up to us to decide how we're going to interact with that. So we have this opportunity right now. And one of the biggest opportunities I see is this Texas-Mexico connection. Now, Miriam and I have been living in Mexico for the last 2 years. We've been visiting for about 6 years. She's got family there. If everything goes well, when we go home from this trip in June, we'll be closing the deal on our property and moving on and beginning the project that we call the Conscious Agora. And I'm really excited because to me, that's just the fun. That's the beginning of the fun stuff, right? But there's also been 2 years of fun stuff. So many people come to events like this, or how many people have seen that meme going on social media? It's like, how many of you want to just grab your friends and go off grid and buy land, right? It's like this feeling that they're tapping into that so many people know, I got to get out of the cities. I got to get out of the cities. But again, there's not so much action behind it. You know, I've kind of come to this theory that if there, let's say the whole world's population was 1,000 people, and 100 of them were people that were so-called awake, that probably 10 of them would be the people buying land. That's just what I've seen. There's a lot of talk and not so much action in these movements. There's a lot of talk, a lot of gathering, a lot of online debating, a lot of circle jerks, all that fun stuff, but not so much like physical, concrete action. And that needs to change. So this Texas-Mexico connection, what Miriam and I have been doing the last 2 years, we found a spot that feels like home for us. We just traveled 6 weeks across the country. Right now, I could tell you at least half a dozen communities that are looking for people actively, that have land already, not some scammer telling you give him some money and he'll bring land later, but people who physically have the land, have the title, have the vision, and are looking for people like yourself. In Mexico for sure, but I know there's other people like-minded in Texas. And what John and I have been thinking, you know, as we're building this parallel network, and with Ramiro's help, we're about to launch the next version of the Freedom Cell Network website, which I want to invite everybody, if you've ever been before, haven't been in a while, or just, you know, want to come check it again, early June, if everything goes well, we'll be launching the new website by this summer for sure. And it's going to exponentially increase people's ability to find each other and to get organized in it in a way that is so important right now. So that's going to be vital, right? People finding each other. But as this parallel network's growing, what we're really envisioning that we're going to see is not only a network where you can find the people closest to you, but people have already told me they have traveled the United States using the Freedom Cell Network to connect to like-minded people. They're traveling, you know, all the way to the East Coast, so they look up the Freedom Cells in Tennessee on Telegram, and they look at the website. They message them and say, hey, I'm part of the Freedom Cell Network back in Mexico, headed to the East Coast. Does anybody know a safe place that I can go tonight, or where I can find, you know, the community of like-minded people? That's what it's going to evolve to. It's not just going to be a place where you find people in your community, but it's ultimately going to be a map that can map out, here's these people selling produce, here's these people selling you know, animals, here's these people selling land, here's these people giving workshops, so you can connect to the like minds. And that itself is going to evolve into the parallel network that Samuel Konkin was describing with his philosophy of agorism. That's what Exit and Build is all about. We're not just saying, like, let's go buy land and, you know, have fun in the country and forget it. The whole point is that we are building the next stage, and we need your help to do it. But it's happening. People who are choosing to be active are seeing the results. But this isn't a passive movement. Like I said, we're the ones in the movement who want to get shit done, and I'm sure there are others. It's not just myself and John or just the Freedom Cell Network. Of course, there's so many good people doing great work, but you have to decide now. Do you want to be a part of this actively, or do you want to be awake and still walk right into technocracy, right? Because you can be awake and still using all their systems, still got your money in the bank account, still letting Google track everything you do, still got your kids in the school system, still trusting Big Pharma, right? Oh, but I'm awake. And then when the shit comes and they roll out the social credit score and the digital IDs, the vaccine passport, etc., you're going to realize, my friends, as so many people have the last 2 years, how difficult it is to thrive when you're stuck in their systems. This is why I haven't had a bank account since 2008. I've never paid taxes. I don't have a driver's license. Don't tell anybody. And it makes life difficult. I'm not saying you all need to be out on the fringes where I am, but I'm definitely trying to push as hard as I can to say, hey, guys, I'm over here. And now I realize we haven't built the infrastructure for this system we need, that we're going to need in the future. And I can kind of help other people maybe take some inspiration to take the baby steps they need, right? Is there anybody here, whoever, feels like sharing, that feels like what we're saying sounds very foreign? Like, does anybody feel like you're very trapped? Maybe you got a 401k, you got $50,000 in debt. You got, just be honest. It's okay. We're a family. We're a community here. We need to find ways to help each other, right? Some of you might be hearing this and like, I'm with you guys. I get it, but shit, I'm barely surviving check to check. I was there 2 years ago. Been the starving journalist activist for almost a decade. It was fun, but I'm done with it. And, we need to help each other, right? So we need to know, in what ways are you struggling to get more free? Is it the bank account? Is it that you got direct deposit? It's convenient. Is it, what is it? Like, because if you're not willing to look into crypto, if you're not willing to look into silver and gold, or you're not willing to create a local currency, then you're basically just consigning yourself to continue in their system. And sooner or later, as our Canadian friends down in Mexico have learned, they will freeze your bank accounts if you support the wrong people. If you come to a Flote Fest, if you went to that Freedom Cell meeting, right? And then I get people emailing me the day after, hey, Derrick, I've heard you talking about this for a while. My bank account just got frozen. Can you help me out? It's like, well, I could have helped you out yesterday, but now you're kind of fucked. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Your money is better off stuffed in between the mattress or in a safe than it is. But another thing is, if you're not comfortable taking the money out of the bank, look into things like credit unions. That's kind of like a half step towards a more localized institution. But honestly, we all know that the currency is devaluing at the same time. So just keeping it in the bank isn't really doing any good. That's why some of us want to buy land and actually put it into tangible goods. But even if you're not at that point yet, guys, invest in yourself. Take that permaculture course so that you can gain those skills. Take that beekeeping course. Take the crypto, whatever it is that you're interested in, and take that money that's just sitting in the bank's hands and going to fund Great Reset projects and probably pipelines on indigenous lands and all kinds of other things. Take that money out of there and invest it in yourself. Because in the times that we're headed into, which will be difficult and beautiful at the same time, the people with the most skills will be the people who thrive. Right? If you don't have anything to offer, and I'm not just talking about gold bars and silver, but if you can build something, you got some practical skills, you're going to be a lot more useful than the guy who stocked up on, I don't know, whatever else people are stocking up. Stock up on the traditional things like, tobacco, alcohol, guns, ammo, seeds. Those are my favorite currency. Get some crypto, get some precious metals, invest in yourself. But Jesus, how long have people been talking about in the Fed and the Occupy Wall Street and the banking system? And I'm just kind of convinced that some people will never actually leave the banks until they come to Flote Fest like, yeah, guys, well, my bank account got frozen. I didn't take it out. I never listened. I knew it was wrong. I knew that, and I'm not saying this is easy. Like, again, I have a different lifestyle, so there's probably many of you who are more dependent on that system at the moment. But the idea and the hope is that some of our tech buddies start creating more solutions so that it becomes unnecessary. So we have to be willing to assess our activism. We have to be willing to see that there is an opportunity right now in front of us. There's so much potential. And I think if you want to come to Texas or you want to come to Mexico, what John is doing and his team and all the people are doing around Texas and so many others, and what we're working on in Mexico, has created an opportunity. As long as that border stays open, and even after it closes, we will be able to transport goods and people across that line. Miriam and I have been doing what we call the modern Underground Railroad. Some of you guys might have heard about it on Vice recently. They said we were appropriating slavery or something. I don't know. But so for the last year and a half, Miriam and I have been doing these caravans that we just call Modern Underground Railroad. It's something I wrote about in my book. My book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, which you can download for free at theconsciousresistance.com/how-to. It came out a month before COVID happened, and it describes everything we're facing. I'm going to update it soon, and all I'm going to do is add the word vaccine passports, and it'll be totally up to date. But in that book, we were describing that sooner or later, at some point in the future, there might come a time where it's difficult to stay free and where people have to move from one state or one country to another, and a new underground railroad would form like the one during the Civil War. And holy shit, it happened a lot faster than I thought. So what we're doing is totally legal at the moment, but what Miriam and I do through the Freedom Cell Network, for people who are interested, They come meet us in Houston. We give them the time, the date, the location. We drive them to the border, help them out with their paperwork, help them cross, and they can either follow us back to where we live and get settled and decide what's next for them, or they can go about their own way. We've done more than a dozen caravans. At this point, we've helped over 100 people come to Mexico, including families who've literally sold everything they owned to leave Canada, packed up their children, their bus, their house, whatever, came down to Mexico with no idea what to do next. And there's a network forming there. So I'm not here to say like everybody needs to go to Mexico, but for those who feel like that's an option, there is so much potential there right now. And between what's happening in Texas and Mexico, I do imagine that as these trade routes start forming, you know, I want to, this is where I'm going to kind of wrap up. I want to buy property on both sides of the border so that when people are crossing, there's a safe house to kind of land, right? And the bigger picture is, this one's just been developing recently, so stay tuned for this in the coming year. Everybody's been paying attention lately to that Young Global Leaders program from the World Economic Forum. I want to do the exact same thing, but from our side of things, right? Because if they're getting in the young minds and they're indoctrinating them with their philosophy, and then what do? They send them out to be presidents, prime ministers, and go in their little field, their spheres of influence. We need to do that same thing. I envision something that's almost like a freedom cell training ground, a fight club of sorts, but for freedom and liberty, right? People come here and they can be educated in permaculture skills and, you know, learning about how to grow food. They can be educated in, you know, mindfulness things like meditation, prayer for those who are interested. They can be educated in the trivium. They can be educated in, you know, community organizing, how to form a freedom cell, all this, like a program that could literally just be a download. And it's something that I imagine wouldn't be open to everybody, but only the people who prove like, hey, I need these skills so I can go back to my community and just put this shit to action. Because I don't have time anymore, guys, for conspiracy debates, for arguing about viruses, for any of that shit. Like, to me, the only thing that matters for the next 8 years that I'm committing my life to is what are we doing to prepare for the Great Reset. I have 6 nieces and nephews, and I refuse to give them that world of you will own nothing and be happy, right? I refuse to accept that. And I want you to reject that as well. So my final point here is that we have to push past those fears. John kind of touched on this a little bit as well. There's so much fear, doubt, and insecurity and limiting beliefs that creep in. And the reason I call my work The Conscious Resistance is because I've been through that, guys. I went through depression and suicide attempts and then eventually drug addiction that led me to prison. And that's what it took for me to wake up, to start like questioning, like, what am I doing? What have I been through? And when I went through that, I realized that there are so many, and I've seen since then, there are so many brothers and sisters even within our movements who are recovering addicts, maybe current addicts, or people who've never touched drugs but are struggling in some other way. And these crazy fuckers take advantage of that. They will try to manipulate you to every degree they can to convince you that you are not powerful, that you are not beautiful, and that you are not free, and that it's over. There's nothing to do. You might as well just sit at home and complain on the internet. They've already won, right? No, that's something that we're here to reject. We have to recognize the strength in us, and to me, that's part of the healing process. So I focus a lot on the healing as well as exposing the dark things through my journalism. But ultimately, guys, it's all about creating a better world. We have to find ways to push past that internal tyrant. That's your doubts, your fears, your insecurities, that voice that creeps in and says, nah, I don't want to go to Flote. It's going to be too hot, and it's a drive, and all these, you know, any excuses. But when you come out here, you connect, and you see face to face, you see no masks. And that's the inspiration. That's the activation. That's why we're calling it the Greater Reset Activation, the activation tour. It's not just a gimmick. Because I'm here to say, my friends, if we don't get activated, if we don't get our shit together, it will be you own nothing and be happy. But if we do choose to act, there might be a different opportunity for our children. So let me read you this final thing. Who has actually read the you will own nothing and be happy thing? Have you ever actually read the article? So it was published in 2016 by Forbes magazine and by the World Economic Forum. And in this article, this short little piece, it's a woman from that time describing what the world of the future looks like, right? And she says things like, sometimes I miss my privacy, but things are so much better now. Like, you know, everything's, of course, everything's equitable and just and diverse and sustainable now. We love it, right? But when you scroll about halfway, here it is, when you scroll about halfway down the article, so it's titled, Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better. Like, so
they took it down from the side afterwards.
So here's the part that's important, though. This is the most important part for what we're doing. She says this. There's a section that says they live different kinds of lives outside the city. I say, okay, what are you talking about? And she says this. She says, my biggest concern is all the people who don't live in our city, those who we lost on the way, those who decided that it became too much, all this technology, those who felt obsolete and useless when robots and AI took over big parts of our jobs, those who got upset with the political system and turned against it. They live different kinds of lives outside the city. Some have formed little self-supplying communities. Others just stay in the empty and abandoned houses in small 19th century villages. That's us. That's the shit we're going to do. We are going to exit from these systems, guys, and it's going to be a journey, my friends. I hope to see you over the coming 8 years and the coming decade as we build something beautiful. For these young ones that are running around, my friends, some of these kids have only seen a world with people in a mess. Thankfully, they have sane parents and they're here, but there's so many other children who are suffering, right? And it's for those kids that I fight. It's for my ancestors that I choose to honor. So I hope you will join me in this journey, guys. Thank you so much. Very much appreciate you guys.
Oh my God, Derrick, thank you. That was amazing. I am also a Mexican escapee, and I came there from Australia, and I got my residency permit before I got there, thankfully. So then I can have a bit of breathing space. So I didn't want to have to be on a tourist visa. So luckily I got that sorted out. If anyone has any Australian friends trying to get out, I do have current information on how to get out. It's not that hard, as usual. Yeah, so, and we're just sorting out the slides for the next presenter. And Tim Picciott, and you are ready to rock. You can do a preamble while we're sorting it out if you like. Give people a synopsis of what you're going to talk about.
All right, so don't go anywhere. We'll be talking about central bank digital currencies and what you guys can do to get yourself outside of the system. But first, I want to let everybody know just exactly how close we are to having a central bank digital currency. So we're just waiting to get the PowerPoint up. I know Josh is helping us out with recording this for other people, because a lot of you guys might already know what's going on, but it's important to arm yourself with information to then wake up other people. I guess while I'm trying to ramble on, I do a lot of videos with Josh Sigerson of World Alternative Media. I've done stuff with Luke Radowski before he became We Were Change and wanted me to wear a mask. But yeah, I've been on lots of different shows. Union They Wanted, financial advisor who basically woke up to the system right around the same time as Derrick Broze. Basically, I found out that the Federal Reserve was private, and thought that if anybody should know that the Federal Reserve is private, it should have been myself, because in 2008, I was on a class that won a national competition on the Federal Reserve against Harvard, Yale, MIT. One day I saw this guy that looked like Rob Zombie. He had his hair down to here, and he's telling me that that is private. I'm like, you're full of crap. There's no way the Federal Reserve is private. And I set out to prove him wrong, found out that I was wrong, and then ever since then, I've been on a mission to expose what they're doing. And right now, everything is really coming to a head in terms of this full track, trace, and control mechanism. And this is all just the preamble, trying to waste some time, keep you guys in the seats. But I told a joke yesterday to Eddie Bravo and the other comedians. I didn't think it was too funny, but I don't know. Let's see. A rap song? Yeah. We're not going to do a rap song, Aaron. But now, last year for Flote Fest, Aaron asked me last second to do the rant competition, and ended up tying John Bush for the. We both had perfect 10s, and I gave it on CBDCs, and this was 13 months ago. And back then, it was something where it wasn't necessarily a done deal about this coming to fruition, and now we're at the point where there's just been so much that's been down the pipeline in terms of where we're at and just how close we are in different bills through Senate and through Congress. That really, this is right around the corner, just like the presentation that's coming up too, that will also be right around the corner. I think Erin should do a rant off right now while she had me come up last second last year. I think she should maybe do a little rant off last second.
What would I rant about, Josh?
You can rant about Josh, you can rant about whatever you want to rant about. So.
Can I do another promo?
Yeah, Chuck Williams for the promo.
All right, since we got a crowd here, I just want to remind everybody I am going to get a group of people together tonight to, what am I calling it? Flote Connections. I think we had it added to the calendar. 5:30 tonight. We're going to get 4 people who identify as male and 4 people who identify as female or more to gather together and they'll be asked questions by my lovely daughter here, who is going to ask these relationship style questions, and we'll hear some answers from men and women about these things that you may have wanted to ask a potential partner or somebody that you're with, or you wish you did ask. These are the kinds of things that you might want to think about. So, you know, there's a lot of relationship stuff happening, and I thought it'd be a nice kind of way to release and breathe and pontificate about what we might want out of our partners. So tonight, 5:30, if you would like to participate, you may be interested in participating in the pool. I need 4 men and women. I have gone around and recruited some. Show up at the stage at 5:30 and we'll get you set up, and we'll have a good time. So look for that. Thanks tonight. Flote Connections.
Thank you for helping me stall. I know you did also talk about people identifying as male and female. I actually used to be a collegiate swimmer, so the whole Leah Thomas thing really pisses me off, because a lot of people think that, oh, you know, she just, or I hate to call it she, but this guy just puts on a women's bathing suit and, you know, he was a slow guy, then became a fast woman. This guy, if you take a look at his 500 free time, and I grew up in New York State, unfortunately, but he would have gotten, I think, 3rd overall in the 500 free for males in the entire state. I mean, he's 6'4", 3 inches taller than me, broader shoulders than me, and so if I go and put on and actually faster than me, and so a lot of people think that this is just some guy that just became a woman, and then now he's fast. He was an incredibly fast swimmer to begin with as a male D1 swimmer, so. You know, for me, that's something that really pisses me off. I guess maybe we can rant on that. I also want to point out my girlfriend Tina Marie is going to be speaking later on at 4 o'clock. At 3:30, she's with Learn the Risk. So I encourage you guys to check out her booth. If you guys would like a shirt like this, like myself, we've got lots of other shirts over there as well. It's all going to the nonprofit Learn the Risk. It was started by her friend Brandy Vaughn, who mysteriously happened to die 1 week before the jab came out, and what was she, 45 or 46? When she was 44 years old. A year before, she wrote a Facebook post almost to the day saying, if I happen to mysteriously die, these are all the things that I want done in the wake of my death, and I want an investigation, I want basically Learn the Risk to continue on, I want press releases, and then so Tina basically took over the reins of Learn the Risk, immediately was attacked right out of the gates by many of the leaders in the anti-vaccine movement that said, listen, if you don't get rid of the investigation, if you don't make this the entire fundraiser about her son, you know, basically names like, you know, there's a fake tree out there that basically said he's not going to give any plugs to her and they're going to try to shut down things. There's basically every major name, pretty much a lot of the major names in the anti-vaccine movement all came out against Learn the Risk to you know, try to shut it down. And so now Tina's taking it on over for her. Brandy was with Tina 9 days before her passing on Thanksgiving. And basically, I don't want to give away the whole story because, you know, she doesn't go into it. But what they're trying to encourage is actual grassroots activism, not, you know, creating a show and making it all about me. It's trying to create everyone to make themselves their own activists, their own warriors out there. And you guys can check out more at the booths we have over there, buy the shirts, buy the merch. She doesn't even take a salary or anything, so it's not like, you know, this is some way for her to make money. She hasn't taken basically a single dime from Learn the Risk. So highly encourage you guys to check it out. But it looks like we are ready to get going here in just a second.
Thank you, Johnson.
All right, hopefully that was good time wasting or killing. Can one of you press the slide? Can you press the slide? All right. Yeah, just the over button. We're good. I am Picciott, the Liberty Advisor. I'm a certified financial planner with Innovative Advisory Group. I've helped pioneer things like putting actual crypto into IRAs, other strategies where people made you know, a lot of money off of Bitcoin or crypto, different trust strategies to legally avoid taxes for doing so. And speaking of Acapulco, I ended up losing my job, a 6-figure residual income at the age of 30. And so the system really did come after me. But today we're going to talk about CBDCs and the coming digital dictatorship, what you can do to save yourself and your family. Now, unfortunately, since I am a financial advisor, I've got to give a little disclaimer that basically says this is all for informational purposes only, in case there's any feds in the crowd. But what is a CBDC? It's funny, I found a picture of a girl that sort of looks like Erin, wondering what's going on. But A CBDC is a central bank digital currency. So think of it as a Bitcoin-like dollar where the Fed controls everything. So instead of having a system like Bitcoin where you have 21 million and it's hard encoded into the code, you have the Federal Reserve System where they track, trace, control, and store value, and then at any whim can just 10x the supply of money. They can just overnight just massively devalue your money, and this is where the system is going, and we are on a collision course with this imminently. Next slide. So today is May Day. It's like a big sort of communist type day. It was also the day that 89 years ago that FDR came and basically confiscated everyone's gold. But he's a big liberal hero, so it's okay that the big liberal hero was the one that put Japanese in internment camps, Italians in internment camps. Also, and this wasn't just kind of ad-libbing this part, but he also put a guy named Hugo Black, who was part of the KKK, on the Supreme Court. Not a lot of people know that, so anyways, that's a little ad-libbing on that one. But the evils of debt-based currency. So what people need to understand and why the system is so evil is that essentially you have to understand what is money versus what is currency. And right now we have a system where, let's pretend that we're all on an island. Let's say there's 3 people stranded on an island, or God help me, let's say I'm on an island with Josh Segerson back there, and he says, Tim, I need $100 to go buy camera equipment. And I go, okay, Josh, we'll have a 1-year loan, 3% interest. And so, okay, so the end of year 1, he would owe me $103. So unfortunately, so Josh, you don't actually have the short stick on this because I'm the banker. So in this equation, so we're both ribbing each other on this. So as the banker,
Camera equipment costs a lot more than $100.
Okay, well, we're making up our own. I'm bad at math. I went to public school, so who knows? But anyways, imagine, so after year 1, Josh would owe me $103. But how many dollars were created on the island? 100. So how do you pay back $103 if you only had $100 to begin with? You don't. You have to borrow more money into existence. And it was that day when I figured this out. I was like, we are basically high-tech slaves. So there's no way to get out from underneath the system if you're in the fiat system, because you are essentially walking around as a slave that doesn't, now I'm not talking about you guys out here, obviously, but you're walking around as a slave that doesn't even know he's a slave, which is the best kind of slave, is one that doesn't know he's a slave. And so in this system, there's no way to pay off the debt because money is debt. And if you used all of your money to pay off all the debt, there'd only be debt left, and then the whole system would then implode and then eventually have to explode in some sort of hyperinflation. So either way, there's a hyperinflation coming. Whether or not we have a deflation, then it goes to inflation, or whether or not we just go straight inflation, it is definitely coming. Okay, so now at this point, I'm not stranded on an island with Josh anymore. But should you be skeptical of Bitcoin and crypto? And you know what? I was incredibly skeptical of Bitcoin and crypto, and probably cost myself tens of millions of dollars because I knew about Bitcoin when it was about 50 cents. And unfortunately, I was like, wait a minute, you've got a system where you can take basically money from one wallet, send it to another wallet, and they can track that address. I'm like, this sort of sounds like the mark of the beast to me. Again, this is like when it's like 50 cents, and I had other stuff going on. I was running a business, doing triathlons. I mean, wasn't like I was just focusing on Bitcoin all the time when it was 50 cents. But I also uncovered a connection to Bilderberg pretty early on to Bitcoin. Now, the very first company I ever interviewed for was called AXA, AXA. The head of AXA is Henry DeCastries. Henry DeCastries, for I believe over 10 years, was the Bilderberg Steering Committee chairman. He was also the head of AXA, and AXA gave, I believe it was $55 million to this company called Blockstream. And Blockstream, I think they raised $76 million, $55 million came from AXA, and AXA basically they funded Blockstream, and Blockstream is the company that basically controls all the Bitcoin core developers. And so there was sort of like a Bitcoin civil war that went on without getting into all the details in August of 2017. And you had one group that said, okay, what we need to do in order to make Bitcoin, get to a point of mass adoption, because it didn't really matter that the block size was only 1 megabyte when nobody was using Bitcoin. But then we got to a point where there was more adoption and the network was getting congested, the fees were going through the roof. And so there was one camp that said, why don't we just make it, instead of 1 megabyte, why don't we just make it 2 megabytes? And then another camp that said, well, we should take some of it, I'm not going to get technical here, but we should take some of the information here, move it over here, jumble it around, so then that way we can fit more information in there. Oh, and then at a later date, we're going to also make it 2 megabytes. Well, that group won out, and that's what's called Bitcoin Core, Bitcoin today. The other one is what we would refer to as Bitcoin Cash. So I mean, there actually is an argument that Bitcoin Cash is actually more like Bitcoin than actually Bitcoin, but this is not investment perspective at all, just stating like how things actually went on if you knew the inside baseball of what was going on. But the group that was pushing for the other one actually was Blockstream, because this is all about problem, reaction, solution, where they deliberately fucked up Bitcoin. So then that way they'd come in with the solution, which is something called the Lightning Network, where, you know, without getting like into all the technicals, but eventually the Lightning Network is going, for people that aren't technically proficient, is going to become the banks, where you're not going to be able to custody your own crypto. And that's one of the gotchas. And so if you are in Bitcoin the right way, you self-custody, you have the keys, you're doing things the smart way. You know, it is a way where you're going to have unconfiscatable money, but, you know, our grandparents and other people out there, they don't necessarily know this stuff. And speaking of grandparents, Derrick Broze sounds like he has awesome grandparents, and I have awesome grandparents, except for when I told them in 2010 or 11, and I gave my grandfather the book, Creature from Jekyll Island. He's like, you better not tell one fucking person about this book, or else everyone's going to think you're crazy, and no one's ever going to want to work with you. And now basically it's like the minimum application requirement of somebody coming on board to work with me is that they have to know about that book pretty much. So unfortunately, my grandparents were not as supportive of this back in the day. So, and Derrick Broze also talked about this, John Bush talked about this as well, the CBDCs and the Great Reset. On the right, we have you will own nothing and you'll be happy. And then on, well, I guess your right would be Klaus Schwab dressed up as Dr. Evil. That one's obviously Photoshopped. Next slide, please. So Klaus Schwab also authored a book that I believe came out either May or June of 2020 called COVID-19, The Great Reset. And there were a lot of clues in that book in terms of what they're planning on doing. So if you go to page 72 and 75 of the book, next slide, please. What you'll see is that, you know, they refer to, now this is actually called, this subsection of the book is called The Fate of the US Dollar. So it's not like they're really mincing words in what they are planning on doing. They describe it as an exorbitant privilege to have the US be the basically global reserve, and essentially says, you know, for quite some time, some analysts and policymakers have been considering a possible and progressive end to the dominance of the dollar. They now think the pandemic might be the catalyst that proves them right. Next slide. In their mind, unsustainable levels of debt will eventually erode confidence in the US dollar, and some skeptics emphasize that the willingness of the U.S. administration to weaponize the U.S. dollar for geopolitical purposes, like punishing countries and companies that trade with Iran or North Korea, will inevitably incentivize dollar holders to look for alternatives. And just think, since I put this slide together a month ago, all the weaponization that's just occurred in the past week, let alone when this book was written. I mean, obviously, it was probably ready to roll by the time COVID-19 was up, because Klaus Schwab had, you know, his buddies at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, World Economic Forum, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation had Event 201, whole another subject. But as for a global virtual currency, there is none in sight yet. But there, again, this is 2 years. There's a lot in sight right now. There are many attempts to launch national digital currencies that may even eventually dethrone the US dollar supremacy. The most significant one took place in China at the end of April 2020 with a test of national digital currency in 4 large cities. The country is years ahead of the rest of the world in developing digital currency. Next slide, please. And not only, so these 4 cities that they rolled this out in, they were giving people, I believe it was $30, and the opportunity to be in the laundry to win free fucking laundry is what got like millions of people to sign up for this. So $30 and a lottery for free laundry is all the chicken feed it took for all the slaves over there in China to get onto the system. So, you know, we don't even need to buy people off for very much. Okay, give you free laundry. Oh yeah, that sounds like a good enough trade to, you know, completely fuck my kids and grandchildren's future. Yeah, go ahead. The United States must maintain an economy that inspires global credibility and confidence. Failure to do so over time will put the U.S. dollar position in peril. That's Hank Paulson, former U.S. Treasury Secretary, also former Goldman Sachs. Question and doubts about the future of status of the dollar as a global currency reserve are an apt reminder that economies do not exist in isolation. Next slide, please. So how close are we? So here we have a Forbes article that is from March 23rd, 2020. Coronavirus stimulus offered by House Financial Services Committee creates a new digital dollar. So we're talking like not even a week after lockdowns, they're already continuing this. This was called the Banking for All Act. And again, this was on March 23rd, 2020. Next slide, please. And different subsections of this bill are authority and mandate for member banks to maintain pass-through digital dollar wallets. Section 4, authority for non-member banks and credit unions to offer pass-through digital dollar wallets. Authority and mandate for Federal Reserve banks to maintain digital dollar wallets for the general public. But don't worry, it's inclusive. It's all about helping out Black people or helping out transgenders. But it's going to be a very inclusive slavery you're in, so no one has anything to worry about. And that was June 11th, 2020. Again, next slide, please. Now, the CARES Act. Everyone remembers like the free $1,200 the government was giving out in May, June 2020. What a lot of people don't realize is that the very first text of that bill, the Maxine Waters draft of that bill, actually called for that $1,200 to be given out in essentially a Federal Reserve dollar, Fed bucks. And so not a lot of people know about that. Unfortunately, I was the only one bitching about it last year on a field to you guys. And so there wasn't enough people bitching about it. So now they're going through and trying to go forward with this. But that was obviously a trial balloon for what's going on. Now, last May, I actually owned the cover of the one on your left. So this is the Economist magazine. Economist magazine is also owned by the Rothschild family. And what we had on the one on the right was actually 33 years ago, 33 weeks for the one on the left. And so you see a phoenix rising out of the ashes of dead currencies, what looks like it could be like some sort of Bitcoin dollar coming out of that, saying, get ready for a world currency. Again, this is like the Rothschild-owned publication. Then the one on the left was from last May. And actually, since I own the one that's on the left, I think the one that I screenshotted on here actually isn't the right one. It is the main thing, but on the upper right, mine has something about gun control on it too. So maybe they've took the gun control out one for this one. But anyways, the Economist magazine is telling you exactly what's going on and how would these guys predict it 33 years ago in terms of what's going on. Next. Now, what everybody remembers about, I don't know, what was it ago? Like a couple weeks ago when Will Smith had that fake bitch slap to Kevin Hart. What was also going on at the same time was something called the World Government Summit that you can find at worldgovernmentsummit.com. And next slide, please. And so as part of the World Government Summit, now this lady, Pippa Milgram, her dad was part of the Nixon administration or Nixon regime that helped get rid of the U.S. dollar back in 1971. Unfortunately, I have the same birthday actually as Nixon, and actually the day Bitcoin was released, the code was also the same day as well. So it's kind of funny that all this kind of comes around full circle. But Pippa Milgram, actually the name of her title, the name of this panel was called, "Are You Ready for the New World Order?" And the person that spoke right before her was Klaus Schwab. He gave like a 5-minute address. So, I mean, I gotta really give them credit, like recognize the game over here, that this trolling job is absolutely amazing. I mean, yeah, the worldgovernmentsummit.com, one of the first speeches is by Klaus Schwab, and the next panel is called, "Are You Ready for a New World Order?" I mean, I really have to give them to him because it's like if you tried telling that to some normie, I mean, they probably wouldn't even believe you. It's just like so far out there. But, I'm sorry, I should go, so we are on the brink of dramatic change. We are about to abandon the traditional system of money and replace it with a new one, digital blockchain CBDC, which will give us greater clarity over every single transaction. And actually, since I made these slides a month ago, I actually had to go back and add this one in there. So, I mean, it's just, and there's probably a lot that I'm missing because so much is happening like every single day in terms of where we are. So here we are, worldgovernmentsummit.com. You can see, are we ready for a new world order? The guy that's heading the panel is the chief executive officer of the Atlantic Council. Obviously, we've got a lot of other global scumbags up there. Next slide, please. Now, the Atlantic Council, I was like, oh, that's interesting, because the Atlantic Councils are the ones who have a CBDC tracker website where they're the ones outlining where the different currencies are in relation to getting this technocracy implemented. So there's 91 different currency blocks. So like the EU would be one currency block, for instance. Obviously, there's many countries in the EU, so it basically covers the entire world. And all but 9 countries basically are in some sort of stage of either launch. 9 have already launched, 15 are in pilot, 16 are in development, 40 are in research. And this is a little bit dated, so they're probably actually even further along than this. But this is the guy who's on the panel, leading the panel for "Are You Ready for a New World Order?" at World Government Summit. So you can't even really make this stuff up. This is from the Wall Street Journal. China envisions its digital currency future with lotteries and a year's worth of laundry. I probably should have had that slide for the other rant I had earlier on. Now, the Digital Dollar Project, Digital Dollar Foundation. My buddy John Snice and I did a video on this in May 2020 when it came out. The company Accenture is kind of the main one behind this, and essentially they're trying to roll out these CBDCs all across the globe. And so there is, a Digital Dollar Project Foundation where these companies get to make, tax deductible, donations to then, basically help further enslave us. So, these guys are pretty smart. I mean, they're able to, get tax breaks while trying to screw us at the same time. And so part of what I'm doing with Bitcoin and different trust structures is sort of taking that information and helping set up basically trust for different individuals who were successful in crypto, and then basically using their tools, but to help free humanity as opposed to helping enslave humanity. And I'll give a quick plug. If you guys want to go to thelibertyadvisorshow.com, that's where I've got all the episodes for all this different stuff, and then you can find all the other places that I'm at. Obviously not on any of the mainstream stuff. I got off there long ago. Now, this is a paper from the Federal Reserve on the federalreserve.gov website called Money and Payments, the U.S. Dollar in the Age of Digital Transformation. Just came out in January 2022. I did a show on this as well with Ernest Hancock. It's a 40. It doesn't take very long to read it. It's like very big font in here, and essentially it's the Federal Reserve trying to say, like, oh, we're not definitely going to come out with this, and don't necessarily think that this is a done deal. So if the government's telling you, oh, this is not a done deal, we're not going to do it, it means they're definitely going to do it. So, I mean, you always got to do the opposite of what they're going to say. Now, this was a executive order from Joe Biden on March 9th, 2022 for ensuring responsible development of digital assets. And then if we go to the next slide, we see the National Economic Council on the same day also came out with new digital asset executive order as well. Again, this is like a month ago. Then we've got Janet Yellen, who's the former, I don't even looking at her. You got Janet Yellen as, I mean, I'll make a joke. You guys, I mean, I'm not an Elon Musk fan, but he did tweet out that thing where it was like Bill Gates pregnant and said boner killer. I mean, that might also be the boner killer. That was an impromptu joke on there that wasn't planning on having that. But Janet Yellen can help deliver the digital dollar. So she is the current U.S. Treasury Secretary also. And I think she had a quote, like, I don't know, it's like maybe probably Josh, it's like 2016 or 2017, where she's like, oh, I can't ever foresee another a recession in my lifetime. I mean, it's just, but then so that ends up, giving her, the ability to then control the money for everybody. So, so then if we go over to her Senate testimony on January 21st, 2021, what we see is, they ask her about a digital dollar. And basically she says, I look forward to working with other federal banking and security agencies, the Federal Reserve and Congress in developing and implementing such frameworks. So, I mean, the Treasury's on board with it, the Fed's on board with it, all the top globalists. Another boner killer up there is this guy is Augustin Carstens. So he is the head of the Bank of International Settlements. Can anyone raise their hand if they know what the Bank of International Settlements is? Okay. So even for this crowd, a very woke, awake crowd, woke in the good sense of the term, very few of you know what it is. So the Bank of International Settlements is the central bank of central banks. There's a book on it called Tower of Basel. It's located in Basel, except it's its own country, just like the Vatican. So, or I guess now like Disney World. So, or what it used to be. So it's its own country. So there's no jurisdiction over it. This guy's ahead of it. He's like a 700-pound Mexican, and it's funny because about a week ago, they had a global food crisis summit with all the top central bankers. I'm like, you're going to be at a global food crisis summit? Like, you're 700 pounds. So why don't you quit eating food and maybe some of the inflation will go down? But anyways, this guy, and so one of his quotes, I didn't want to use video in here because, it's always, janky if you're trying to use a video on these. But the quote was, we don't know who's using a $100 bill today, and we don't know who's using a 1,000 peso bill today. The key difference with the CBDC is the central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability, and will also have the technology to enforce that. Technology to enforce it means they have the ability to shut you down and then stop the transaction going from one person to another and cut you off from the fucking system. That's the lamest terms version of it. If you're offended that I say fuck, you should be more offended that you're getting fucked than the fact that I said that. So anyways, our friend Bill Gates, he has Microsoft had a patent which was 060606, where they basically want to put like nanotech inside of you, and for doing like little tasks that are going to reward you with cryptocurrency. And I'm sure it's just a coincidence that it was patent 060606 from our good friend Bill Gates. Next slide, please. Digital dictatorships. Now everyone knows this guy, Klaus Schwab. So some of the technocratic quotes we have over here is, even crossing a national border might one day involve a detailed brain scan to assess an individual's security risk. So, I mean, for all the Elon Musk fanboys out there, I mean, who's the main person developing the Neuralink and trying to, read people's mind would be Elon Musk. So, of course, you've got to come out if you're Elon Musk as like a nice guy, so everybody likes you, and be a free speech absolutist, even though you previously got other people kicked off Twitter. Anyways, that's not what the speech is about. Fourth industrial revolution technologies will not stop at becoming part of the physical world around us. They will become part of us. So fourth industrial revolution technology basically means like, transhumanism type stuff. And today's external devices, from wearable computers to virtual reality headsets, will almost certainly become implantable in our bodies and brains. So good old Klaus Schwab, this is his top minion, one of his top minions, Yuval Harari. And these slides actually come from his speech at Davos. Next one, please. So I have been calling this a digital dictatorship. Some other people out there in alternative media have been calling this a digital dictatorship. And this is his actual slide. His actual slide in here says, it's probably hard to see, but says, digital dictatorship risk ahead. This is his slide, not mine. And I was already using that term. I only found this out a couple weeks ago. I'm like, oh my God, the motherfucker is using the exact same term, digital dictatorship. And that's part of the vestigial magic where they need to tell you what they're doing ahead of time. Yeah, and, oh wait, it's got... Oh, ignore or reset is in there as well. But alongside inequality, the other major danger we face is the rise of digital dictatorships that will monitor everyone all the time. And this is, not hard to predict when you're the one that's helping implement this. Now, again, this is also from his slide at Davos. Says biological knowledge multiplied by computing power multiplied by data equals the ability to hack humans. This is, again, from his slide, not inferencing any of this stuff. And then on... what's the guy's name? Fareed, I think it was either Sanjay Gupta or Fareed Zakaria, one of those two guys. They asked him, what's like your favorite author? And he gave a 3-minute thing talking about how Yuval Harari Sapiens is his favorite book. So, I mean, it's just, so this is also Obama's favorite book as well, which is, kind of crazy. Next slide. Let's get Barack Joan Bomber off of there. But now, I don't know, I kind of came up with this quote, so I don't know if it makes me egotistical to put like a quote that I just made up. But the public's understanding of blockchain will determine if society is either set free or is captured in a technocratic digital dictatorship. Next slide, please. And so this is a warning to everybody. Today is May Day. Today is May 1st. And this is a major warning, a major May Day to every single person out there that if this is actually implemented, and maybe it won't affect us because really the solutions are everything that John Bush and Derrick Broze have been talking about, and exiting and building and doing your own system. So luckily, you guys all sat through Derrick Broze and John Bush, what they were talking about, which are the solutions. So it's not going to affect necessarily those people, but it's going to, I don't mean those people, sorry, but it's going to affect basically 99% of the world out there, and it's even going to affect those people as well because we have loved ones who aren't, buying into the system and people who are getting jabbed, and so yeah, and really, when it comes to understanding blockchain technology, it's a lot like understanding a gun. That you can use a gun to go offensively kill somebody, or you can use a gun to defend yourself. And so blockchain can be used as the most freeing thing for humanity, or it can be used as the thing that absolutely is used to enslave us. So that's what I didn't understand in 2010 when I discovered Bitcoin, is I only understood the fact that this sounded like a mark of the beast system. So what they're doing is, I think they wanted to go out there and make Bitcoin kind of sexy, make it cool, make it be sort of like an anti-establishment thing to draw in a lot of us, get a lot of the tech geek nerds out there developing software, like Colin Cantrell, like WizKid from Nexus, and they got all these people developing this software and putting out like different freeware and coming up with the infrastructure of this, and they're just and the bad guys are gonna be like, okay, well, thanks for developing this for us, and now we're gonna take the best parts of the system and then use it in a central bank digital currency where they're gonna track, trace, control, surveil everything you do. And what I gave a rant on 13 months ago was basically we're gonna be in a system where they're gonna have social credit scores that are gonna be tied into universal basic income, and they're going to essentially try to make everybody so poor that they're going to have to opt into the system. And this was all, if you go back to the creator of the Federal Reserve System, it's James Warburg. He was James Warburg was the one who in the play Annie, like he was Daddy Warbucks, and he said, we shall have a one world government. It's only a matter of through consent or conquest. And so you don't want to, they realized things like World War I and World War II and beating someone over the head and putting a gun in their face, and just think about all the regime change that's going on. They realize that doesn't work. That the best way to get people to buy into the system is for them to want it and beg for it. And so they're going to either make everyone broke or make everybody poor, get them to opt into the system themselves for help. And obviously the government's never there to help you. I think it was Harry Brown that said the government's there to break your legs and then give you a wheelchair or something like that. And another theory I have, another way how they're going to do this, is there is something I know is interest rate risk, is that when the value of and I don't really recommend anybody's in bonds at all, but if you are in a bond, which is, the bond market is actually way bigger than the stock market, but it sort of works like a teeter-totter. So as interest rates go up, the underlying values of the bonds go down. And so let's say you have a 10-year bond, it's worth, say, $1 million 10-year duration bond, and rates go up 1%, your underlying value would go down by 10. So your $1 million would turn into 900,000, but don't worry, you're getting like, basically no interest off it. And so if you have a 20-year bond and rates go up 1%, the underlying value would go down by 20. Rates go up 2%, the underlying value would go down by 40%. I'm not talking crazy stuff here. I'm talking if the rates go up 1 or 2%, which current bondholders already have gotten slacked. I don't have the slide in here, but as of like a month ago, the worst. So this is current as of about March 24th. But the worst performing asset up until then actually were government bonds. So everyone that wanted to be safe, safely, was losing money on that. And so what I think is what they could be doing is for all the, retirees and bondholders and pension holders who are in these funds, that when the rates do rise, they're going to get absolutely shellacked, and then they're going to come in to help with the central bank digital currency. And I don't want to give them any ideas on what to do because, I'm sure there's other 200 IQ people out there trying to figure this out for themselves. Next slide, please. So here we have, end of the petrodollar. Saudi Arabia considers accepting yuan instead of dollars for Chinese oil sales. Next slide, please. Russia considering selling its oil and gas for Bitcoin as sanctions intensify from the West. I mean, just imagine like that headline like 5 or 6 years ago that Russia could accept potentially Bitcoin for their oil. I mean, nobody would have thought that. I didn't even think that. Next slide, please. India is snapping up cheap Russian oil, and China could be next. Next slide, please. There's approximately, we're talking about 3 billion people, and I don't really trust like the numbers, there's this many billion people in this country, whatever. But anyways, it's about half of the world. Russia, India, and China are options on the table to accept the yuan. So, I mean, that's pretty crazy. Next slide, please. But ultimately, the solutions here, because we don't want to just drone on about, just make it one big complaint fest. You got to have, different solutions here. And I guess the Cliff Note version of it, it was everything that Derrick Broze and John Bush talk about all the time, and having freedom cells and communities. But you have to have assets that are unconfiscatable. You have to have assets where they just can't come in and take everything. Thanks for playing. And so, like I mentioned before, with Bitcoin and with crypto, there's ways to do Bitcoin where, essentially the bank or something like Coinbase, they're the one that hold your keys at any point. I mean, just ask people. I think people in Russia have their Coinbase accounts taken. I mean, just ask, lots of different major institutions of people trying to accept money from different places and getting shut down. And so you ultimately have to control your keys. You have to, and what I mean by keys are when you, and a lot of you probably already know this, but when you go, there's different hardware wallets, and what you can do is, and you don't have to use a hardware wallet, but there's ways where essentially you get like 18 to 24 words, and then those words can then recreate your account anywhere. But there's other ways of doing it where you let like Coinbase, you let some other bank hold on to your Bitcoin, and then in that case you don't control your money, and they can just take it at any time. And so obviously that's not the way to go about doing that. And then ultimately one of the ways they're going to try to control people is not only through the money, but it's always going to come down to a food thing. So my good friend Ernest Hancock, who was here before, then he saw, oh man, it's only 10 speaking here, so I'm going to leave. But so I gave him a plug, and he's not even here, but what a jerk. But anyways, I love Ernie. But it's always going to come down to a food thing. And so just look at where we're at right now, where even Joe Biden's out there talking about how there's going to be impending food crises and shortages, and even if there isn't, all the food is all crap. It's all GMO. It's all poison. It's all meant to dumb you down, make people fat. You are what you eat. So you're eating like crap. You're going to feel like crap. You're going to look like crap. And so ultimately that's where things are going. So you need to make sure that you're in a spot to be able to have food independence, because it doesn't take very long for things to break down to like Road Warrior or something. Now another thing the globalists have been talking about is upcoming cyber attacks. So it was Klaus Schwab, just paraphrasing here, but he said something along the lines of, it's like, oh, this current COVID-19 is going to seem like a minor disturbance compared to the coming global cyber pandemic. And so they're calling it a cyber pandemic. I think it was in July, they had Operation Cyber Polygon, where they're going through and wargaming this. A lot of the central banks were actually also wargaming back in December about what would happen to the financial system if the system goes down. And then now you see all the propaganda out there in terms of, oh, Russia's going to have a cyber attack. Watch out for Russia. Russia is going to have a cyber attack. We know if there is a cyber attack, we know the criminals in our government are going to be the ones behind it, probably not the Russians. Not to say that the Russians are good guys either. But anyways, because of that, that's why precious metals is also important as well. I like Bitcoin better than precious metals, but in the event of a cyber attack, obviously the precious metals or having food, is going to be more important. Having land, being away from, all the rest of the sheeple out there is going to be important as well. Next slide, please. I already got into self-custody crypto, kind of jumped the gun on that one. And then, finally with privacy coins. So, a lot of you in this audience are probably very well aware of things like Monero and things like Pirate Chain and things like, you know, Josh is a big fan of Epic Cash, but you know, there's a lot of different privacy coins out there. Essentially what that means is it's crypto that can't be tracked, traced, or surveilled. So if I send Bitcoin to you, they would know that this address sent X amount of Bitcoin and X amount of Bitcoin was received by your address. Whereas, and then through the AI and through the average person not being careful enough, they're then going to be able to detect who you are. There's companies like Dark Data Services that have been doing this for a very long time already. And so anyone that's taking their money off of Coinbase and putting it onto their wallet, I mean, you're not being super secretive. I mean, they know who you are. They're able to then, you know, detect that stuff. But something like Monero, they don't know if I send, and again, not financial advice, do your own information on this, do your own research, but something like Monero, if I go and send crypto over to you, they're not necessarily going to know, they're not going to know where the crypto went. And that's the same thing with Pirate Chain, same thing with, there's lots of other ones out there. You can do your own research on these. But again, I'm Tim Picciott, the Liberty Advisor. You guys can find me at thelibertyadvisorshow.com. I'm also a financial advisor that's trying to help, you know, people like us, you know, escape the system. And then also, you know, obviously there are people who, I'm not necessarily advocating they go out and get IRAs or 401ks, but it's a fact of life that a lot of people already have that. And so I've got ways where you can get crypto, actual crypto into IRAs, 401ks, actual gold into IRAs, 401ks, consultations on people who made a lot of money on crypto. Then for more like, and basically all of my clients are people like us, and I deliberately have like a lot of offensive things on my kind of questionnaire intake form that would scare away people that aren't like us, to kind of save time for myself. And so you can also book appointments there. I do videos with Josh Segerson for World Alternative Media. And you can find us on, I mean, basically you can find us pretty much everywhere, but you go to, it's probably easier to list places you wouldn't find us on, but you can go to, yeah, YouTube, go to YouTube to find us. No, we're not on YouTube. Okay. And so, thelibertyadvisorshow.com for all the different propaganda I put out there. I've been putting out there for a long time. A lot of it's, you know, financial type stuff. And anyways, I appreciate everyone's audience today. Maybe you guys wanted to hear me. Maybe you just wanted to get a little break from the sun. But either way, I appreciate it. And thank you guys very much.
Wow, that was awesome. Of course they wanted to hear you. What are you talking about? Yeah, so we have our next speaker pretty much straight away is Rebecca Powers here. I'm sorry I don't know everyone, but next year I will. You've got a few minutes, so if anyone does have a quick question, does anyone have a question relating to the last speaker? No burning questions. All right, crowd. Well, that's cool. Come up, Rebecca. Oh, wait, we got one. What are your
thoughts on XRP? I mean, I know that's one of them, and there's just for the prices right now, like it's kind of betting on the bad guy in a way. Like, how do you deal with that?
So his question was, what do I think about XRP? So for those of you who don't know, XRP is Ripple. It's pretty much the banker's coin. Now, I've only done one video ever on Ripple, and it actually was the day of the all-time high by coincidence. So I think it was like January 2018. I was doing a Facebook Live, and actually my feed cut out right as I ushered this statement. But this is again when it was like $3. I think it was like $3.40, and everybody at this time was like, "Oh, Ripple's going to be $10. Ripple's going to be $100." I'm like, well, first off, there's 100 billion of them, so it's $10. It's going to be $1 trillion. I mean, there's no way in this framework that that's going to be $1 trillion or $100 a coin. So okay, it's going to be like bigger than like the world's GDP. But anyways, my statement that day was, you know what, for everyone that says Ripple's going to go to $10, I hope you lose all your fucking money. And then the feed cut out, and people are like, oh, you're just jealous, and I'm going to make all this money. Well, I don't even know what Ripple is today because I don't care about it. But 60 cents. So I made that video at $3.40. And what we're 4 years later, and it's 60 cents. So it hasn't even been a good investment. I want to invest with the good stuff. Now, if you want to take a flyer and put some money in there and know that you're dancing with the devil, I mean, that's one thing. I'm not in it at all. But yeah, I mean, I shared that sentiment back then. I share the same one today. Another person has a lot of good videos on. Well, I don't really agree with a lot of the things he says, but Tone Bays has when he was doing crypto scam podcasts. He has one on Ripple, and I would advise people to look at that because like one of the guys involved in Ripple was also one of the guys involved with Mt. Gox. And so anyways, that's the Cliff Note version. But does anyone else have any more questions? Okay. Also, learntherisk.org. That's my girlfriend, Tina Marie. She's going to be speaking after Rebecca. So make sure you check out that booth, check out the website, and thank you guys.
Woohoo! Way to pack in some information. That was really cool. Thanks very much. So, Rebecca Powers, we have buy land, build community. Oh my God, very exciting. Okay, all yours.
All right, Rebecca.
Hello. So yes, I'll be chatting about buying land, building community. I actually created a 2-day, 14-hour course on this exact topic, and I'm going to condense that into 30 minutes, so wish me luck. But if you do want to take the course, I have the sign up on the website for May 28th and the 29th, and it'll be a live, Zoom session. And in addition to this, before I get off this topic of upcoming events and such, my partner John and I have worked tirelessly to put on an incredible event called the Exit and Build Land Summit. Yes, so it's going to be super epic. This is May 13th through the 15th. So just 2 weeks from today, we have some incredible speakers. The first 2 days are actually free if you sign up to watch from the comfort of your own home. We do have more interactive workshops where you can actually network with people and learn from experts in the areas of permaculture, homesteading, preparedness, the financing options to buy raw land or do a construction loan. And so we hope that you're able to join us. But I want to just say something real quick about myself. So I've been an activist for many years, but mostly in the realm of entrepreneurship. So I do believe that having equity in the land that you own, ideally collectively with other people, is really important. So whatever you need to do to make that happen, if you believe in yourself, you're already more than half the way there. So I knew throughout my 20s, I said, before I turn 30 years old, I will own land. And I was not in a financial position at that time to make that come true. But I worked tirelessly to ensure that it manifested into the physical realm. And part of that is really finding the right partners. So a little bit about me. I was working full-time with a neighborhood around agriculture, selling tiny homes. I've always believed that, less is more. It's really important to connect with your spirituality and people in your lives more so than it is with material possessions. So in many ways, starting these intentional communities or even simply buying a homestead is it's like a political revolution, because we're rejecting the status quo, working a 9-to-5, being stuck in the rat race, and figuring out what we can do to align our philosophical beliefs with our daily decision making, whether it comes down to what type of food we're eating and where the source is from, if it's local or if we're growing it ourselves. And also, when we turn the electricity switch on for our power, where is that coming from? Is it coming from a centralized power grid, or is it coming from, the solar panels that we have on our roof that have harvested renewable energy? So definitely 100% like taking a holistic approach. So buying land and building community is not something that I would recommend pursuing if you are on your own. You really need to connect with other people and find the right partners. So number one, the first partner is the land. And I say that because without the land beneath our feet, we're not grounded. We don't have a connection to source if we're not able to connect in a spiritual way with the land that we're stewarding. And when you do find other people to work with and have partners, the number one priority should be stewarding the land and making sure that everything that you're doing is going to enhance the value and have a long-term kind of approach, and not to be short-sighted. So that being said, I am so excited that John and I, my partner and I, fiance, he always likes to say, he gets mad at me when I say partner. But we actually just bought 10 acres. So that dream that I had throughout my 20s finally came to fruition. And, it's been interesting. We haven't had the land for more than a year, and we've already had obstacle after obstacle to overcome. It's a lot of work to own land. And that's why I think the second component of building community is really important, because when you find the right people to work with, not only will that lift you up, but it also will make the stewardship and the maintenance of the land more productive and more fruitful. So I do have some suggestions. We have, of course, that event coming up in 2 weeks called the Exit and Build Land Summit. But we also have like local freedom cell groups that you can connect with and meet other people. If you are wanting to dabble in intentional community before buying land and making this huge lifestyle change, I would consider checking out IC.org. That's the Foundation for Intentional Communities. They have a very robust directory of not only communities that already exist, and some which have even been around for decades, but it even lists out on their directory if they have spiritual preferences, or if they have, are they vegan, are they paleo, are there dietary restrictions, are they accepting new members, can you just go visit for a weekend and see what you like or don't like about that community. But yeah, definitely visiting some of these intentional communities before you start building on your property is a really good idea, because you can take that experience and learn from what went well for them and maybe what they would have, you know, changed in their initial approach, so that you don't have to make those same mistakes. So when you do acquire your property and you have a small number of people that you're working with, you know, we recommend keeping it around 8 families, because if you surpass and have too many people, you lose that interpersonal connection and those deep, meaningful relationships. But once you have the right people and you're able to acquire the land, there are a few steps that I would recommend taking. So most importantly, you're going to want to create something called a strategic plan. So you sit down and you say, what is our mission? So you create a mission statement, because in order to avoid internal conflict and, you know, infighting is primarily the reason a lot of these communities end up falling apart. There's a statistic that Diana Leaf Christian, who wrote Creating a Life Together, she quotes that 95% of intentional communities fail. And that's from her experience visiting many and living in one for decades. So the reason most of them fail is because of those conflicts that inevitably arise. So definitely getting clear on your mission, your vision, and creating a strategic plan. Looking 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, and then getting deeper in the weeds of a 1-year plan. So that way, everyone who is working together knows, okay, our #1 priority is to get livestock going, or is to get our aquaponics going. Our intention is to set up 5 tiny home rental properties so that we can have residual income and have a way for people to come out and do educational workshops or apprenticeships. So once you have that strategic plan, you can really hone in on your action items and delegating who naturally is gravitating toward what task. So if someone's really talented at gardening, then it makes the most sense for them to be the master gardener and to, you know, steward that space for the community. Whereas if one of the parents loves teaching, they could be the one leading the homeschool co-op. So the kiddos have something enriching during the daytime to participate in, while the grown-ups work and earn a living. And also, like, building out those amenities on the property. Once you acquire the land, like, what is your #1 priority? You know, you want to be able to earn a living where you live, ideally. There's tons of opportunity for that nowadays, especially with income producing assets and ideas of how you can earn a living off of the land. But that being said, you know, the amenities that you build out will totally change the vibe of the community. So having a dedicated co-working space is a great idea, because not only does it bring the community together during the daytime, but everyone also will have a space where they can, you know, work on the event that they're planning, or the yoga workshop they have scheduled the next weekend, or planning out their beekeeping efforts and how they're going to private label and, you know, sell it at the farmer's market, those sort of things. So entrepreneurship is important for intentional community, because you really do want to run it like a business. And if you're not really clear on, like, okay, we bought the land, now what? Like, if you don't have a strategic plan, it could unfortunately lead to infighting or conflicts that can become, you know, past the point of no return in some circumstances. Just kidding. So I'll just say a quick note. A few months ago, I quit my full-time job. I was working at Village Farm Tiny Home Community. I was doing that for almost 3 years. And through that experience, I learned so much. You know, I had always talked about intentional community, but I really had never lived in one. And this is a property where there were, you know, at the time that I left, there were 70 tiny homes, so over 100 people living there. And, you know, really through that experience, it helped me evolve as a human being to see firsthand what it takes to pull one of these communities off, how it's organized, how you deal with conflict resolution, how you have it set up legally, you know, and that's why I do also feel passionately that you should own the land. Because, for instance, in this place where I was working, the people who lived there only rented the land. So what does that do to the power dynamic? It really threw things off, to be truthful, because the residents would have these great ideas, but ultimately it was zoned as a campground and they didn't own their plot, you know? So if they wanted to do something that was against the community guidelines, it really caused a lot of grief and suffering. But, you know, for the most part, it was a great experience. I got to learn about property management, project management, land development. And if we are creating these alternative institutions and these unique communities and really our own villages, not only are we going to have to step into a role of entrepreneurialism, but we also need to become micro land developers, because really at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're rejecting the societal norms by acquiring land and basically building out our own little micro communities in unique ways. I mean, each one, of course, is different. So that's just a little 2 cents about that experience. And I say that because I really do think that you should experience community before buying the land and like jumping in head first. It's good to get your toes wet. So ultimately, my long-term vision for these intentional communities would be, you're not sacrificing anything from your usual lifestyle. You know, you're still going to have all of your modern day amenities. And in fact, you are saving money and doing work that is more in alignment with your purpose on this planet. So something that John and I are working on, we just started Exit and Build Property Solutions. It is our first project with land development. And our intention is to buy over 100 acres. We're going to set aside about 20 acres for a school, a co-working space, a yoga wellness space center, you know, an outdoor kitchen and all of that fun stuff. But the idea is to sell plots as well, so that, you know, you could own your own half acre, your own acre, and then the burden of running a farm, or, you know, all of these intricate details that go into a community can be voluntarily agreed upon, and you're not carrying that weight on your shoulders. Everybody is deciding how they would like to contribute in a meaningful way. And you do have the freedom, if you wanted to move, to sell the plot and not, you know, leave with nothing. A lot of intentional communities, if they're, for instance, set up like a nonprofit, you really don't have an opportunity to buy your plot. And so if you do leave, or if you die, like, you have nothing to show for it. You can't pass it along to your kids. You can't sell that to someone else. So yeah, definitely considering legal structures when you're doing this as well. I know we're all anarchists and we're not into the government and such, but we have to accept the fact that, you know, where we're at right now in history, like, we do still have to work within those systems in order to gravitate toward more freedom and liberation. So yeah, those are just some things I have on my mind right now. I didn't create a slideshow. You know, usually I'm very like, I'm going to do a slideshow and know exactly what I'm going to say. But today I really just wanted to speak from the heart. This is something I feel very passionately about, because I know that it is a feasible solution. And I believe we're at a point in our social movement where we're past the complaining, being angry, the arguing. And many of us have come to terms and accepted where we're at in this time and space continuum and are looking to get active and activated, as Derrick Broze says, so that we can make changes in our life to basically build something better. Like Buckminster Fuller says, you have to build a model that makes the existing obsolete. And that's really what we're doing when we buy land and build community. So it's great to have people who you can do this with. It's great to kind of sit back and consider where you want to go. Of course, we advocate to come to Central Texas, but the good news is there's lots of options. And it's a really exciting time to be alive. So I hope this inspired y'all to buy land, build community, and yes, I'm happy to take questions.
So how would you suggest interfacing between your intentional communities and these surrounding communities?
So the question was, how do you interact with the surrounding communities when you build your own community? There's this movie on Netflix called the Rajneesh. It's like Wild Wild Country or something like that. So they move into Oregon and like basically totally piss off all the locals. There's all this conflict and it's a disaster. And they were really building their own free private city. It's a really cool documentary. If you haven't seen it, it's I think 3 episodes. But anyway, all that to say, it's imperative that we integrate with the local community. And in many ways, we can offer so much value that the other people who've been living here for generations are grateful that we're here, bringing life into the community and at large, and also offering so much value. So, for instance, there's a speaker at the Exit and Build Land Summit. Her name's Nicole Sauce. And she has a podcast called Living Free in Tennessee. But their whole concept is it's not about buying one plot of land like a hippie commune and, you know, just living off the land, kind of like we're doing right now for a few days. But she's like, okay, here's a big neighborhood and we each own our own house. But, you know, as new properties come onto the market, let's snag them up. And then we just kind of grow that way. And that's the strategy. But yeah, definitely I would say, would want to connect with the other neighbors. And I mean, we have connected with our neighbors in a very meaningful way, and it's offered value to our life and value to their lives. And I'm really grateful that in Texas, there's just that Southern hospitality and people are very kind, and our neighbors happen to be preppers. So we're happy about that. But yeah, definitely wanting to make sure that you're able to offer value. You know, maybe you bring them some honey from your beekeeping operation, and you can each offer each other value so that there's a positive resonance there.
Is there a coupon code that people can use in order to get a discount on the Exit and Build Land Summit tickets?
Right. So we actually set up a booth over yonder, which has a lot of awesome goodies, but there are flyers with discount codes to our summit that we're putting on, the Exit and Build Land Summit. I actually happen to have a stack of them with me conveniently. So if you want one, if you raise your hand, John will pop one over to you. But yeah, we're offering a discount. You know, there are going to be farm to table meals served at this event, and we are paying our speakers. So there's a ticket price to cover the 3 days if you do come in person. But you'll be set up in a beautiful convention center. The lunches will be served there. We're going to have 500 freedom lovers all in one beautiful venue so that we can connect with others and explore. Oh yes, I do want this 45 minutes within Austin. I'm looking for 50 acres. I want 5 other partners. I mean, the people who are coming to this event, that's exactly what's going down. We're going to be able to network, socialize, and really create meaningful long-term relationships, because it's challenging to buy land on your own. But hey, if everyone comes to the table with $10,000 and you buy it as an LLC and you have 10 people, that's $100,000 down payment, problem solved. And now you can go get your construction loan if you don't have the cash or crypto to buy it outright. And it becomes more feasible when you're able to work together collectively. So if you're looking to do this, I mean, this event is like, I quit my full-time job to help put this event on. That's how much I believe in it. Because we did have our first one in November, and it was so profound and really the solution in many ways. So Yeah, that's going to be 3 days, but also we do have the 2 free days online. And we have speakers like Joel Salatin. I mean, has everybody heard of Joel Salatin here? He's freaking awesome. Like, he calls himself a lunatic anarchist farmer. I love him. He's great. With the biodynamic farming and all of these great strategies. We have Marjorie Wildcraft with the Grow Network. Jack Spirko, I don't know if he's in the audience right now. He'll be there too. Stephen Brooks created a huge eco-village development down in Costa Rica. Very successful. We're going to have Diana Leaf Christian. She basically wrote the Bible for intentional communities. It's called Creating a Life Together. I would recommend starting there if you've never read that book. It's very insightful. She also wrote a book about finding community, which again, if you go on ic.org, they have a really great resource. It's a directory that outlines all of the different, it's kind of like the Freedom Cell Network in a sense, but just for communities. And you'd be really impressed how many already exist. So yeah, those are just a few of the speakers. When I was selling the tiny homes for those few years, our neighboring property it's called Community First Village. They're amazing. We have the creator of Community First, Alan Graham. He basically has housed the formerly homeless. They have literally 3D printed tiny homes. Like, it's like an RV park on steroids. It's so cool. So he's going to be there presenting and talking to us about how he grabbed that vision out of his mind and manifested it into the physical realm. And they are really, I mean, they have an Alamo Draft House, movie theater on site, state-of-the-art woodworking, an auto repair shop, food trucks. They have kilns and do beautiful pottery and artwork. It's a really awesome development. And, you know, if you're wanting to do this and buy land and meet the right people, it's, I think, really imperative that we see what other people have created so that we can, one, have more confidence, but also be like, okay, he structured it, this part is a nonprofit and that's in a land trust, and then this is a condo association, or, oh, they bought it as an LLC. Like, there's all these different strategies, and there's no one size fits all approach for intentional community. I mean, that's what makes it so unique. Just like permaculture, just like land, you know, there's no parcel of land that's exactly the same. It's unique, and it depends on the terrain and the environment and the bioregion. So learning from others is something that I'm fond of, and I'm excited to hear from all the speakers at Exit and Build, and I hope that y'all can join us there. Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, y'all. So now we'll go buy some land and build community so we can be at festivals like this that last 5 days. The idea is to just do this 365 days out of the year. Thank you.
All right.
I thought you dived off the stage. What's going on?